Awesome. Okay. I called the meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. Are there any amendments to the agenda? I will go ahead and start first. Can I add a special presentation? Not really a special presentation, but yeah, I guess so, from Simone on the BBRC?
Yeah, I can do.
And also, Erman, I believe you're on here. Did you want to also present on the TSC?
Yeah, I can do that as well. I can go like, yeah, after Simone as well.
Perfect.
Oh, Armand, what was the presentation that you were giving after?
The TSC, Transfer Student Center.
Okay, I got it this time. Thank you. And then Tay.
Hi, can I add a surplus proposal? Basic needs subsidy care packages. So sorry, y'all.
Yeah, so basic needs care packages. And then Sarah.
Can I strike bag, please?
Okay, got it. And Jane.
Can I strike TGIF, please?
Got it. And Angie.
Hi, can I strike ASRF and travel mini grant fund allocations? And can I also strike my OccuSpace surplus proposal?
Yeah. And then Jenny.
Hi, can I strike capital contingency? And then also can I add a surplus proposal for capital contingency computers? Sorry, y'all.
Okay, I got that. I think we're okay, Breeze.
Hold on, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry folks. Great, okay. With that, can I get an approval of the agenda, please?
I move to approve the January 25th agenda.
Can I get a second, please?
I second.
Jane, okay. Tay motions, Jane seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. And by a vote of 11 to 0 to 0, the motion passes and the agenda for this week is approved. Great. Moving on to approval of the minutes for last week. I hope everyone had the chance to review them. Let me check the date. I believe it was the 18th. Yeah. It was the 18th. Can I get an approval for those minutes, please?
I move to approve the agenda for the USAC Council meeting on January 18th.
Can I get a second?
I second.
Erman motions, Emily seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands.
Hey guys, is this for the minutes? I heard agenda.
Oh, sorry. Approval of the minutes for last week, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. And by a vote of 10 to 0 to 0, the motion passes and the minutes for last week are approved. Great. Moving on to public comment. Public comment is a time for any member of the public to come and speak on any issues that they would like to be heard. every member of the public has the opportunity to speak once, and remember to use respectful language, use gender inclusive language. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from accountability. And awesome, with that being said, any member of the public who'd like to speak at this moment, please go ahead and raise your hands and we will promote you. And once you have been promoted, please keep your hand raised until I call on you. Thank you. So we can go ahead and start off with Radha.
Hi everyone, it's Radha, the CalPIRG chapter chair. Hope y'all are having not so stressful midterm seasons right now. Just wanted to give my quick CalPIRG update. So last week we had our kickoff meeting where we launched all of our campaigns and we exceeded our goal of 100 people and got 128 students there. And it's super exciting to see all of the excitement for student activism on our campus. And it's really what makes a grassroots organization like ours really successful. And this week we started our funding drive. We are funded by students who pledged to add the $10 per term CalPIRG fee. And we're currently 35,000 members strong across the state. And we also every year need to sign up 10% of the student body per our contract with the university. And we are pledging on our campaign to get the state to ban single-use plastics, following in the UC steps to protect our environment and public health. And our goal for this quarter is to sign up 1,000 new members. And so far we are on track to hitting that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your updates, Radha. Great. I believe the next person was Abiha.
Hello, my name is Abiha. I use she, her pronouns. And today I just really quickly wanted to hop on and share the importance of the Transfer Student Center, also the TSC. It is located in Kirchhoff 128. It's across the hall from the BBRC, which I think is also a topic of discussion today as well. And I'm a staff member there. So I've been working there in person since I think like September or so. And I have been able to meet so many, literally hundreds of transfer students, help them with like simple questions, more complex questions, point them in the direction of which they need in order to get answers to questions that we may not have been able to answer. We've helped students with studying and everything like that. We have like an entire room where we play lo-fi music. It's an amazing place to join in. We have events like nearly every single week. And I think that this kind of shows like the importance of the Transfer Student Center for the transfer community specifically, right? As we know, right, as Arman always like talks about, the transfer community is very intersectional, right? We have like commuter students, parenting students, we have people who are part of the disabled community and everything like that. So all of these people come together into a very intersectional space, which is the Transfer Student Center. So advocating for permanent funding for the TSC will just further help us make sure that the space stays there for students in the future. It'll help make sure that the assistant director has a job next year, right? And then that our beautiful other staff members at the TSC are still able to greet y'all with smiles whenever anybody decides to drop by. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Abiha. We really appreciate it. Let me see who else. I believe the next person is Zuleika.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here and share space with you all. I am also here to talk about the Iron Referendum. I just want to express my gratitude for this referendum. It is something that, it is such an important issue and something that as a former transfer and as a former co-chair of the TLC, an issue that we have been fighting for a while is permanent funding. The lack of funding does not allow us to properly support our community. And I'm pretty damn sure that's the same case for the BBRC. These communities have been underrepresented. They've been underfunded for far too long. And I'm in full support of this referendum. I just want you all to keep in mind and just learning right from the Cub referendum as a former co-author of the Cub referendum. I believe that one of the things that we did that we fell short on is working in community. So I just want to emphasize that is just try to work in community as much as possible, make sure that the communities represented in this referendum are also a part of the process, the referendum process, and a part of the campaign. So yeah, I just want to emphasize that and show my full support. And I'm really excited. Like, y'all do not know how excited I am about this. It's been something that is, yeah, this has to be done. So just thank you so much for bringing this forth. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this, hopefully get passed. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Zuleika. Justin?
Hello. My name is Justin Rodriguez, and I'm this year's internal chairperson for METRA, one of the mother organizations. I'm here in strong support for both the Blackburn Resource Center surplus proposal and for the Earn Referendum, which will contribute funding to the Blackburn Resource Center and the Transfer Center, Transfer Student Center. I want to say and bring this issue up, both communities face retention and graduation issues still in 2022, despite all the resources UCLA has at its disposal, which is a lot. Black students especially have a long history on this campus for advocating for space and for services to make sure Black students can be retained. And the BBRC was one of their victories after years of organizing. So I want to bring up the issue of it's important that while these spaces are funded, it's important that they're also governed and directed by students from both the Black and transfer communities. As we move back to campus, it will be more important than ever that students have the resources to succeed on this campus, a space to be with others, being community, regular programming, counseling and advising services are vital to the retention and survival of communities on this campus. So with that, again, in strong support of the Earn Referendum and the surplus proposal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justin. Sachi?
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm just here with two kind of separate but important updates. One from CS Mini Fund. The CS Mini applications are due this Friday, January the 28th. Hearings will be week 5. I have a little Instagram graphic. If any of your offices would like to post it, we would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to get obviously as many applications as possible. So please apply. And if you have any questions, you can hit me up and I can help walk you through the application. Secondly, the LA Metro scoping period for the Sepulveda Transit Corridor project is ending on February 11th. I believe that is in 16 days. So time is really ticking to submit public comment. I was able to give public comment and mention that USAC had voted in favor of a resolution. GSA just unanimously voted in favor of a similar resolution. But I think it's really important for Metro to hear from you all as council members and also the people in your networks and your offices, hearing that kind of unique perspective from the variety of different reasons why a UCLA campus Metro stop is important, I think will be helpful in their process. So I will drop the link to the SCC for All website, which has an abundance of information, also information on how to submit public comment, but it's super critical. You can just use the template if you don't want to craft your own. It'll take a minute, but please do so.
Thank you so much, Sachi. Great, amazing. Any more hands raised? So going once, going twice. Seeing there are no more public comment, we will be closing public comment at 7:17 p.m. Great, moving straight into funding. Jenny?
Hi, everyone. For contingency programming funding, let me drop the link and the total. So we have 12 non-USAC entities and 1 USAC entity for a total of $9,399.76. Let me know if you have any questions.
Hey, Breeze, we are having a difficult time hearing you.
Motion, anyone?
Hey, Breeze.
Okay, can you hear me now? Right now. Hello?
We can hear you now.
Now we can hear you, yeah.
You guys can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
I move to allocate $9,399.76 to 12 non-USAC entities and 1 USAC entity.
Can I get a second, please?
A second.
Sarah motions, Emily seconds. All in favor, raise your hand. Great, and by a vote of 10 to 0 to 0, the motion passes and contingency program for this week is approved. SFS?
Hi everyone. So this week we have a total of $2,715.63 allocated to 2 non-CSC orgs, and I'll also put that in the chat.
Great. Can I get a motion, please?
Oh, this is just
yeah,
not voting.
Okay. Any opposition? Going once, going twice. If not, thank you so much, Momina. Tay?
Hi everyone. We're allocating $1,015 to I think 4 non-USAC entities. Yeah, 4 non-USAC entities, and then $530 to 1 USAC entity.
Thank you so much, Tay. Any opposition? Going once, going twice. If not, SWC programming is approved for this week. Thank you so much. Prom? I'm not sure if she's here right now. She'll be late. So moving on from that, great. We're gonna go straight into special presentations. Simone, do you want to speak on the BBRC?
Yeah, LOL, I guess I can go first. Hey you guys, today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the BBRC. I know I came to some other meetings last quarter, and it's still the same old story, right? Black students are still lacking resources. The Black community is severely underfunded. Like we talked about earlier, how vital retention and access resources are. Currently, we are being told as ASU by Vice Chancellor Gordon and the Chancellor that there is not enough space in the BBRC for our projects to operate, as well as because of this student-initiated task force that mother orgs are currently protesting because there is no student representation and there is no ability for students to make decisions for our projects, right? He's keeping our projects retention and access resources from going in there. SHAPE was not able to conduct a single site that is our access project, and for the first time, it didn't operate for a whole quarter in 26 years because of what's going on, what the Chancellor has allowed to go on with Black students and staff in the CPO. Black students are not safe, and they haven't been safe for a long time. And now it's affecting our community. It's affecting ASP's ability to counsel. That is our retention project. It meant while ASP wasn't counseling until week 6 of fall quarter that Black students were going without counseling supports. They were going without academic supports. Students that were dismissed were not getting back into the university. Students that were AA and potentially on the verge of dismissal, unfortunately some people were dismissed. We're losing Black students because we are not given the money or the environment that we need to be successful, that we need to properly administer these resources to Black students. I don't know how many students out there, because SHAPE couldn't give a site, unfortunately weren't even able to apply to UCLA because we weren't there to help them with their college applications. So That's how important that these resources are. AEP, our community service project, they didn't get to have a site this year. They still haven't had a site. We usually work with kids in Compton. We host Saturday school forum on Saturdays. We go into their neighborhoods. We help them with school. We help them, you know, with everything, and just being there, that mentorship, especially with COVID now. I don't know what's happening to those families, a whole community. We're just completely disconnected from. These resources are important. And right now, I need you guys to see the value in them, because unfortunately, administration doesn't. They don't see the value of student-initiated and student-run projects, resources, organizations like Mother Orgs, like CRC and SIOC projects, like access and retention projects. So I'm here today asking for a surplus proposal of $230,000 because the BBRC is lacking space. We can only have programs that fit up to 45 students right now in the BBRC, and I have over 1,500 students in the Black community right now in our general body. We're at 4%. And we can't fit more than 45 people in there. There's no resources in there. Students are going in there. It's like a lounge. People just sitting there studying. It's like another hub on campus for students to just sit there and do work, but there's no resources for them to use. There's no food for them to eat. There's no support. There's no jobs. There's no tutoring. There's nothing. And Vice Chancellor Gordon and Jean Block, they're sitting there doing articles, and they're talking about how well funded the BBRC is. And it's created this illusion that Black students are adequately supported, but they are not. We are not. And I need you guys to come together and support these Black students on your campus. Last year, everybody was talking about Black Lives Matter and rising to the challenge, and the chancellor has failed to rise to the challenge. The politics have been performative. He hasn't even rescheduled his meetings with Black Alliance. He hasn't even met with me yet as ASU chair. All this was going on with CPO. He has not spoken to me since September. Black students have continued to be harmed by the CPO. And now the space, the Black Resource Center that was created to house them, they're being told that they can't go to because it's just not enough space. Monroe told them that they can work in the corner. And he instructed student workers and professional staff members in the BBRC to not help these projects, to not help Black students. Ain't that something? So more than ever right now, Black students on this campus need your support. We need you guys. We need more space. Students need scholarships, and students need to be able to give these services to Black students on this campus and to the community of Los Angeles. There are other community service, initiatives. There's all kind of programs that sit within the Harambe Council. So, it's not ASU staff that's being hurt. It's our general body. It's all these Black students on campus being hurt. The Harambe Council is home to 28 student-initiated and student-run organizations run by Black students. And they're supposed to have access to the Black Resource Center. They're supposed to be able to program. They need money for programs. They have resources that they provide. ASU is a very collaborative and communal space. What about staff, faculty? What about all of our stakeholders? What about our annual events? What about the Beloved Community Initiative? What about things like that ASU supports that promotes community for all students of color? I mean, this is a threat. It's a threat to student-initiated and student-run. It's a threat to student empowerment. It's a threat to us all. And look at how it's harming Black students, because we haven't had the decision-making ability to provide resources for ourselves, or to make decisions in the center, or just decide where this money goes or what's being spent where. So, right now more than ever, Black students really need support. And not just this one-time allocation, but obviously continuous support as we continue to grow, as the Black student population at UCLA continues to grow, as students are out here doing these access resources, these retention services, and we continue to grow the Black growing community. the BBRC will constantly need money. It will need consistent economic support. And that is why we're here to talk to you today about the Earn referenda that we'll talk about a little bit later. But it's really to talk about how do we, not just right now in the moment, but how do we continue to support Black students on this campus? Because there hasn't been enough support given to Black students on this campus. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Simone. And with that, I'll hand it off to our line.
Thank you so much for that, Simone. Very, very well said and very needed. And I think that so much of what we're talking about today is really, I think, balanced on the cross-community support that I know that this council can and will, I think, work towards. I'm gonna share my screen for what I want to talk about today. Can y'all see that? Is that visible to people? Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, I want to talk about the Transfer Student Center and why it is such a important spot and site for the services and programs that transfer students need and benefit from, and why it's a site that really needs funding support and the type of attention that UCLA is simply not giving to the transfer community. So I want to start off with just talking about what the TSC is. It's housed on the first floor of Kirchhoff between the Student Media Office, the Veterans Center, and across from the BBRC. It is housed under Student Affairs and is the site that's supposed to serve the transfer community, specifically around operations, programming, and services, and being a physical space for transfers to congregate. That aspect is a really important part of the center and is fundamentally what is, I think, at stake with the way that funding is currently working with UCLA and the TSC. So some of the things that the TSC does, it provides resources for transfer students. This year, a few of the more important ones have been including parking permits for students who have either been denied, transfers who have been denied permits from UCLA that have been seeking them or otherwise do not have access to parking permits, as well as being a site where transfer students can pick up food vouchers if they need, as well as other resources for the transfer community. They run a mentorship program and a volunteering program for transfers, which is really important because transfer students often do not have the same institutional support for accessing the same opportunities that direct entry students have. And so it gives them an opportunity to still gain those opportunities to work with transfer students that have been here for a year, to adjust to the university, and to basically be plugged into things that they otherwise would not have the chance to access. They manage the social media presence for UCLA transfers, which includes admissions. This is really, really important because the TSC does a lot for admissions, making sure that admissions is trained on how to deal with transfers. They are the ones who announce transfer decisions being made. They're the ones who really work to get the information around admissions out to students. I know that all the information that I got when I was admitted from a transfer, as a transfer student, I got from the Transfer Student Center, not from the university itself. They host CAPS, so students who need that mental health support go and access the TSC resources. It is really, really a lot easier to walk into the Transfer Student Center and have that offered to you in person there than have to run around trying to access those resources on your own. They program the really big events that really give a community around transfer students. So that's specifically National Transfer Student Week that occurs in the fall quarter, Bruin Transfer Pride Week that occurred last week here in the winter quarter, and then Transfer Graduation that happens in the spring, which are the times that the transfer community can really be brought together. And then, as I mentioned before, the most important part is that it vitally provides a really safe physical space for transfer students to study, receive support, and in general, come into community with other transfers. That's like, that space part is so, so important. I know that there are lots of times where I felt like the like when I needed a safe place to go and I had nowhere else to go on campus, that I would have the Transfer Student Center as a place to come into community with students that share those experiences with me. And that is something that is really important that the center offers. And it's really important to understand that the TSC is new in UCLA's history. It's not something that we've had here forever. And it only exists because students have organized for it. The Transfer Student Program was the first program that was established for transfers in 2009, and it was made under the Bruin Resource Center. And it eventually became the physical space that we have in Kirchhoff now through the activism of the Transfer Student Representative's Office, and most importantly, the Transfer Leadership Coalition, who really activated in order to make sure that there was an actual center for transfer students. And so I think it's really important to understand that we only even have a Transfer Student Center because students have organized around creating one. And it's so important for that organizing to continue from students to ensure that the Transfer Student Center is something that can continue offering its services to the transfer community. There are many, many reasons why transfers need support, but these are just a few that I wanted to highlight. Retention issues. Transfers only graduate at a rate of 7.9% in the 2-year frame that they're given to graduate, supposedly on time, compared to direct entry students who have an 82.3% success of graduating within 4 years. And the fact that there is such a high percentage point difference, over 10% difference of transfer student graduation rates within the projected timeline is important because we are often forced to stay longer at the university because of the difficulties of navigating UCLA. It's often really difficult for transfers to overcome community college stigma. We make up 25 to 30% of UCLA's undergraduate population, right? So transfers are anywhere between a fourth to a third of the student body. And the majority of these transfers are community college students. 93% of them come from 101 different California community colleges. More of them come from community colleges out of state. Some come from other schools from out of state or private universities, but the majority are community college students that do have to confront the stigma that so many students, faculty, and staff have against taking the community college route and having that one be a part of a student's academic experience when we know it's so important for upward mobility and access to the UC and everything like that. Transfer students navigate intersectional identities like being parenting students, being veterans, being system impacted or formerly incarcerated. A very big chunk of the transfer community are first generation students. Over a third of the transfer community is first gen. So there's also a really big lack of a sense of belonging. I'm sure y'all remember what happened with housing last spring. When transfer students were denied priority housing simply because we were seen as less important. The rationale was that we are not at UCLA as long as direct entry students, so we don't deserve to be housed. When we know that housing is an issue that transfer students face, accessing housing, as well as the fact that it is so important to feeling like we belong at UCLA. And when we are not included in decision-making spaces, and when we are told that we are being prioritized after or not at all after direct entry students, that sends a message that we don't belong here at UCLA. And that's something that transfers have to navigate while we're students here. It's often really hard to adjust to the quarter system. It's really hard to use campus resources and to access opportunities because they're made with the direct entry student in mind. So many clubs and programs at UCLA are 3 or 4 year programs that transfer students can't access. Even 2-year programs are inaccessible to transfer students who would have to apply before they even know if they're admitted to UCLA. So there are structural issues in place for transfer students. As well as transfers often having to navigate additional responsibilities, financial concerns, and have experienced really disproportionate impacts, especially with labor because of the pandemic. And these are just a few, like this, like I could go on, but this isn't like, this is just a few of the things that transfer students face. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have a transfer student center that addresses these concerns and provides a space for students to feel safe and have support as the 2 years that they have here at UCLA. And so to talk about the specific funding issues, the TSC has no permanent funding. That is the bottom line here. They have no permanent funds. All funding that the TSC gets are temporary funds that is basically at the discretion of student affairs, SFAC, and development to assign. They pick a number every year. They decide how much they want to give. We never are able to know what that number will be until they decide that number. So right now they have 9 student staff, 1 assistant director, and 1 director. But the only person whose job we know will continue is the director job. We could lose our assistant director. We only have 2 full-time people in the office, right? We could lose our assistant director anytime. And our student staff number can fluctuate per year depending on the amount of money that is given to the center. So the people who are putting their labor into making sure that the center exists and can offer services, their roles are basically hanging in the air. And then what I think is completely egregious, the TSC is still being required to pay off its rent for the space we have in Kirchhoff, right? So we're given a space by the university, but we have to pay for it. We don't just have it. We have to pay UCLA to have a space for students at UCLA. And so the amount of money that we get from student affairs and development and SBAC, not even all of that can go back to the students because it has to go to paying our rent. We have to pay it back to UCLA. UCLA gives us money that we give back to them for the space that we have. And we don't have a choice in that, right? Because we have to pay off our rent. So because of the fact that UCLA is holding the Transfer Student Center to pay off rent, even the limited funding, which is not guaranteed that we get, goes back into paying that rent. So essentially, without permanent funding, the TSC is in danger of staff, services, and even our physical space being cut at the whims of temporary funds. And so we really do need stronger financial independence to ensure that our transfer community of over 70,000 or over 7,000 students, which again, each year is anywhere between a quarter and a third of the student body, has the support and the services that we really, really need to be successful in our time here. So I want to be clear about the referendum ask. I know that we'll reiterate the language, but I want to spell it out very clearly as well from the transfer side of things. It is $1 per quarter that would go specifically to the TSC rent. And so what this would allow is there to be independence of the TSC from its future monthly rent payments, which right now is $70,000 a year that they have to pay for rent. So this money would allow there to be independence from rent. And then after the rent is paid off, the money would go back into ensuring that there are higher operational programming services being offered. So we would be able to hire more full-time staff, right? Instead of just putting all the labor of running a center onto 2 full-time staff. We'd be able to hire more student staff to offer better services and more services for students. We'd be able to increase the outreach and support. We really want to create a CRC-like structure for the Transfer Student Center and the transfer student organizations that don't have a lot of support right now. And because of the fact that there's lots of high turnover for transfers, it's really often up in the air as to whether or not these organizations are able to continue. And so this is funding that in the immediate sense would give the TSC the independence it needs, but in the long term would give the TSC the stability it needs for its services and its center and its programs to continue and to not be, again, at the whims of being cut every single year because of the fact that there is no guaranteed funding. This would serve as a permanent funds unless students of the future decide to not pay them anymore. But otherwise, it would be secure funding for the Transfer Student Center, which right now it does not have secure funding. In order to always operate and serve, it would be able to focus on its service to transfers instead of having to worry about its finances. And again, it would be able to increase its services after the rent is paid off. So I think the bottom line here is that the funding for the Transfer Student Center would allow the community to have a sense of security. And I think that one of the things that is really the hardest about being a transfer student here is that you never know, you never feel secure. I don't think I have felt secure in my path of being a UCLA student here for a single moment, from having my orientation be something where transfer students often, even from the first day, right, where orientation, transfer students have told me that they have been told by their direct entry new student advisors that they are not good enough to take certain advanced level coursework at UCLA, or that they shouldn't even expect to apply for the competitive programs that UCLA offers. And then we go through our whole academic career being told that we are lesser than, or not knowing that opportunities exist, or experiencing difficulties and not having services that are provided to us. And the Transfer Student Center is a critical center because it is the only institutionalized center that gives all of those supports and resources to students. And I think it's important that we invest not only in the experiences of transfer students now, but of transfer students for the future, and ensuring that the systems that we put in place as student leaders and as a campus community are ones where we are being purposeful about such an important community in need at UCLA. I know that we will have like more to say and discuss once we get to the Earn referendum, but more than anything, I want you guys to realize how critical it is for transfers to come in knowing that they will have help the 2 years that they will have UCLA, because 2 years goes by really, really fast. There are so many transfers graduating in my class within the next few months who do not feel like Bruins because we have not had support. And that is what this would do, is we would be giving students in need what they need. And yeah, thank you guys. That's all I had. Let me boop, boop, boop.
That was beautifully said, Arman. Thank you so much for putting that together. Really appreciate it. Great. Okay. Moving straight into appointments. Jane?
Hi. Yeah, so both of my appointments are consent items. So I don't know if there's any opposition for Katrina Herrera for SACBOG or Anise Hiba for SACBOG. Sorry if I screwed that up, the pronunciation. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me, but yeah. Is there any opposition for either of those?
Seeing as there's no opposition, both of them are appointed. Congratulations to them both. Great. Okay. Moving straight into officer reports. I can go ahead and get started with mine. It's been a really stressful week. I'm not going to lie. So I will start off with kind of my COVID updates. Y'all might have seen a letter that circulated by Office of the President in response to how administration is handling the entire situation. And I really wanted to call attention to all of you, just because I think this has become such a larger issue. I want to start off by saying that I had 2 COVID response and recovery task force meetings, as well as case management meetings. And I want to emphasize the fact that an epidemiologist literally came onto Zoom, and admin had talked about how, well versed they are, how much they've done studies. And then when we were in this meeting, administration was they literally kind of fought the epidemiologists. They were like, well, many of our students want to go back. And I want to emphasize, when I told them, students' lives are at risk, the epidemiologists themselves said there are a high chance that students will pass away. This is an issue. Administration just did not care whatsoever. They went as far as to say that, we have to go back, and that it doesn't really matter because so many schools are going back. And their cases in point were schools like Claremont McKenna, Stanford, which I want to point out are at least a third of the size of UCLA. Furthermore, I also want to emphasize the fact that a lot of the way they're going about this is not at all helpful. I want to say that in my follow-up meeting, I had a meeting on Sunday with the Council of the Presidents in terms of how their universities are each handling this and how they're offering hybrid models. UCLA, I feel like, is doing the least for its students. UC Santa Barbara, UC Davis, they went as far as to hire students. And I know this is not the most optimal way, but hire students so that recordings will be available online. Santa Barbara and San Diego are going and getting appliances so that classes will be recorded and students can be safe. And yeah, they're trying, it's something. It's not what everyone would like, but they are doing something. UCLA is not doing that. UCLA is saying you need to go to class. And even in one of my classes today, and this was a professor that is teaching a class on marginalized students. I'm not going to name them, but she is making us go in person. And she said, well, unless you have an excuse from CAPS, you need to be in person. It's quite frankly ridiculous. So at this point in time, I really, really need us as a council to come together and really activate on this. DSU and myself, we've been planning a strike that will probably happen Monday. My office has been working on a letter and we'll be releasing informationals, and I hope that all of you guys will also be posting and mobilizing around this. Like, I'll be sending everything in like the Slack and making sure that we can get students involved. But there should be a strike on Monday, because if professors are not offering hybrid model, we will also be creating email templates that students can send to their professors saying, I will not be attending your class on Monday because you are not offering a remote option. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts, anything that they would like to add, but I do think that it's quite frankly absurd that this university cares so much about so many other issues, and they care so much about their sports. Like, that was the issue that they kept bringing up. They care so much about money, and they don't care about student life and student livelihood. And it's quite frankly embarrassing. It's upsetting. And it just shows like how little and how insignificant our lives are at this university. So that's what I'll say on that end. And then for the principals and response meeting, we just had an update in terms of like renaming. There should be an email going out to the student body pretty soon regarding like the next steps that will be taken and how like students can advocate to the chancellor for the renaming process to happen. And I guess the last important detail, yeah, our office will, I think that was the biggest thing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I will pass it off to our EVP. Or IVP, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Breeze. The first thing again that I always want to mention is the True Bruin raise with case management services, and the Dean of Students application is still out and it's been extended until February 4th at 5 p.m. So please share that, because so far we've only had a few nominations. And we want to recognize Bruins who has helped another Bruin in a crisis. And then my Strength and Student Wellbeing Committee is finalizing the student worker guide. So we're especially highlighting student worker rights and navigating work amidst the pandemic. My outreach team, we finalized a listserv with over 1,400 student organizations on campus. So if folks need to reach out to any orgs, please let me know. And then I think the same committee we're trying to establish some kind of like USAC wide newsletter. And so I'm going to be reaching out to each office to see if you guys already do that. And then the off-campus housing fair is set for Friday of week 5. So if you're looking for an apartment for next school year, please attend if you can. And then finally, Campus Safety Alliance is having a town hall meeting this Friday from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. And it's going to be about the return to campus with Mick DeLuca and other faculty from ASH. And I think it's quite important that like almost everyone on council is there, because, you know, we're all still in a pandemic, and Breeze basically explained the whole situation and why it's super important that we like show up and advocate for a lot of the things that students need right now. And then I'll pass it off to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Cass. From my end, I would really just love to encourage y'all to join me for the Students of Color Conference this Saturday. It'll be 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. There will be like breaks in between, and you're welcome to hop in and out. I know like virtual Zoom has been tiring. Dropping the link here, but there will be a keynote address from Tiffany Lofton. She's a super awesome civil rights speaker, and we'll also have networking opportunities with student leaders across the UC. So if you want to bounce ideas or initiatives off of them, that could be really cool. And then from my office, Federal Relations team is working on a Title IX op-ed, and we're also working with the CARE internship program to do some advocacy on SVSH. As for state, we are also working on an op-ed with the Daily Bruin on SAPEP to kind of help with funding there. Local relations team has been doing really awesome work, and ASU CLA Event Services has been super duper helpful. And thank you so much to Patty for helping us with that. The CD5 and mayoral event are being confirmed for week 8 or 9 of winter quarter, and then the mayoral will be like in April. University relations team is working on the UC Regents Week with Herman's office. They've all been doing an awesome job. So if y'all are interested in learning more about the Regents, feel free to check out either of our Instagram accounts. CalFresh EBT is in the final stages of being tested at the registers across the ASU CLA restaurants. Should be available to students soon. And then our comms team is doing a Advocacy Spotlight series. You all are amazing student advocates. So, and you all know great student advocates. So please feel free to nominate yourself or any other students you think deserve a little shout out. And yeah, that is it for my office. I will pass it off to Angie.
Thank you, Sarah. In terms of my officer report, I attended an LMS meeting last week to discuss the progress and updates for the transition to Canvas. And I shared some issues that some disabled students have been facing just regarding the lack of closed captioning on some recorded lectures. And they said that they're working on changing the settings so that all lectures that are recorded and posted will have closed captioning and the transcript feature. So yeah, working on that. And then I also attended the UGC meeting on Friday last week, and we unanimously voted to reverse the priority enrollment decision for CAE students, which was made in June 2020. And if y'all remember, that decision was basically to decrease priority enrollment units for CAE registered students from 19, 20, and 21, which was the max, to 15 units. And that just provided a lot of barriers to course enrollment for disabled students. And so the reversal of that decision was a really huge win for the students, because this is something that we've been advocating for so many months, and it just shows admin the power that disabled students have and that their voices and experiences need to be heard. So that was really exciting. And the decision will be reversed for spring 2022, and it is just awaiting approval from the Legislative Assembly for permanent reversal. But in addition to that, during the UGC meeting, we sent out a letter. Well, UGC had sent out a letter last week to professors and TAs saying that instructors could largely have authority over how they would teach their courses for the rest of winter quarter, with the option to hold remote and hybrid courses. So it was very shocking to find out that the announcement on Friday basically mandated everyone to come back to in person. So there just seems like there's a lot of discrepancy between the decisions that are being made and who's making these decisions. And also during that UGC meeting, they stated that spring quarter will likely be in person, but some professors could apply to teach their courses remotely if they filled out a form to the registrar by January 27th, which is, I think, in a day. So it's really short notice, and AAC has been sending out messaging to make sure that professors and departments are aware of this deadline in case they need to switch their courses to remote. I also had a meeting today with the Center for Advancement on Teaching, along with FAC and DSU, to coordinate our event during week 6 to encourage professors to still offer hybrid modalities despite the in-person decision, and to make professors more aware of the different ways that they can offer online options, since students are really in need of these. And I think professors still have some autonomy over the way that they teach their courses. So we're looking to just make professors more aware of these different options that they have. And we're going to host the program now in a like a video format. And we have been reaching out to different student communities to see if they will be interested in participating and sharing their experiences. And then other than that, my office has been providing email templates, and we're sending a letter to the Committee on Academic Freedom within Senate about recorded lectures and voice recordings. My office also, unrelated to remote and hybrid, but we have onboarded our winter interns, and we're continuing to review Books for Bruins applications, and we're hosting our CalFresh event in partnership with Mecha. So we'll keep y'all updated on that front, but that's it for me.
Love it. Great. Okay. And then I know I finished my officer report, but did want to plug something else. So this coming week, as y'all know, there has been large movement by like students from the MOs to talk about, quite frankly, all the shit that like CPO has been putting students through, especially students of color. There will be a few panelists, and the MO Town Hall will be this coming Friday at 2 p.m.
5 to 6:30.
5 to 6:30. Simone will be a panelist. I will be a panelist, as well as Maxine, who y'all know is also a phenomenal student leader. And I hope that y'all could.
And Jeffrey.
Oh,
the SIOC chair, Jeffrey, will be a panelist.
Yes, amazing. I didn't know that. But yes, Jeffrey's amazing too. And if y'all could please go ahead and like show up and plug other people as well. We definitely want to call attention to all of the stuff that administration has really been putting under the rug, and they've really been pushing aside even more so right now because they say that they're prioritizing COVID, which we all know that they quite frankly are not, because they canceled the COVID Response and Recovery Task Force meeting on Monday, the week before. We are going back in person. So, yeah, I will be passing it off. I think that we're done with all of our reports. Great. Moving straight to admin reps. Jessica's not here. George?
George isn't here.
Oh, LOL. Josh?
Just a reminder about any referenda or anything that needs to go onto the ballot, we really need to have by the end of this week. So please, please, please make sure that you send me the final draft of whatever you would like to get by this Friday at noon, so we can get that onto the ballot. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Josh. Orlando?
Hello, everyone. No updates tonight.
Fernando?
Hi, everyone. Oh, echo. No echo no more. Okay. So this is off of what Jenny's surplus proposal is going to be later today. Some of your computers are really old and are no longer supported by the operating system or whatever operating system they have. So if you still are using the computer that's in the office, let me know, but most of them are going to be wasted. And I will let you know if you're one of the computers that has been identified as really old.
I'm screaming. You're too funny, Fernando. And Patty.
Patty is also unable to make it to.
Wait, hold on a sec. Okay, awesome. I think then we are done with admin reports. Great. Moving straight into, there's no old business. I'm sorry, that just never got struck. But yeah, moving straight into new business. So first off, We have elections calendar, folks. If you can, please turn your cameras on. This is a very important topic, so please be engaged. Has Palmer been promoted yet?
I just did.
What's going on? I
Hey,
have
Palmer.
yeah, if we're just trying to get into this, I have a PowerPoint and I think I can share my screen.
You should be able to, Palmer.
Okay, cool. I'll just pull it up real quick. Okay, awesome. So I guess before we I show you all some things to note, I kind of just copied the one from last year for the most part, and the only changes that are on here I noted at the end. I don't have like a particular agenda in any of the changes I made. I just thought they would like help boost voter turnout, but if you all disagree with them, I'm totally willing to end up with whatever calendar you all want. I don't have a particular agenda. I think that you all know what's best. So that being said, I'll just kind of get into it. So here's February. There's nothing on here that you all can like officially kind of change the date on. Like candidate packets and all that is kind of like up to the elections board discretion. But I just wanted you all to be aware this is kind of what we're going with right now. So this would be after next week's meeting. I have some social media regulation changes that I wanted to get approved. I'm down to talk about them today, but I know you all have a lot of things on the agenda and I didn't put it on there. So I can also just do it next week. Totally fine with that. And so then after that, we talk about social media changes, then we'd go ahead and drop the candidate packets Wednesday the 2nd. There's also a couple other things that I need to get approved with like my UCLA and everything. So this again is a tentative date, but that's what we're looking at as of now. These info sessions, I think you all went to some of them. Basically just like, here's how to run for office. We're going to teach you about the signatures, all that fun stuff. And then these USAC info sessions are just like, this is what each office does. I might be getting communication with you all more about that in case anyone wants to like talk to the new candidates about anything. So yeah, keep moving here. This is March, and that would just be candidate packets due that Friday of finals week. Just give people as much time as possible. And then kind of moving in, I think we start school here. And then we're going to go ahead and week 1 have this orientation slate meeting. Same way we did last year. It was just that first Thursday of week 1. And then that Friday would be the deadline to withdraw here. So this is the exact same as last year. And again, we did the 2 times here just to make sure people can make whatever works for them. As far as like having it in person, I think it'd just be more accessible to do it online. So that's probably what we're going to go with. The official format hasn't been decided yet, but would probably expect something on Zoom just to make it more accessible for everyone. Okay, moving on here. This is April now. These kind of carry over. And then online campaigning would just begin here. Last year it began on the 7th, so it's just that Wednesday of whatever week this is. So that's when, same as last year. The only difference, this is all the same, just literally transferred over next week, Monday, next week, Monday, all this fun stuff, expense reports. And then, yeah, this is also ballot propositions. All this was the same as last year. So moving on here. This is the voting week here. So this is a change. Normally the voting week was on this week, and which just made it so there was less time in campaign season. And also the voting used to go from this Saturday to, I think it was this Saturday. And we just made that decision last year because it was like all going to be online. We figured give people more days. In my opinion, I think that kind of backfired, and it just made people kind of lax about like, oh, I'll do it the next day. I'll do it the next day. Like if you give someone 9 days to do something versus giving them 5 days to do something, it's probably more likely that they'll be a little more incentivized to just knock it out if they only have 5 days. I don't know. We can talk about that though. That's just my opinion. Again, I'm not super opposed to just keeping it how it was last year, but I just wanted to try something different. And especially because most of our outreach is going to be done in person this week, right? It's going to be like, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in spring, but hopefully like we're walking on campus and it's like, oh, did you vote? Come vote, like that kind of thing. So that would just really give us more resources here if we only are doing that for 5 days. If you take staffers and make them do something for 9 days, they're just going to be kind of burnt out by the end. But if it's 5 days, school days, I'm just like, it'd be a little bit easier to get everyone motivated. And then we wouldn't be stretched as thin in terms of staff and in terms of people actually like caring about like getting people to vote. So kind of summarize the changes on this next slide here and like kind of my pros here. In terms of cons, we can always talk about that as well. So the cons of maybe moving the elections to week 7 would just be more stress maybe on a candidate who would like, now I have to do the campaigning for 7 weeks instead of, like, or I guess if we're starting on week 1, it'd be like 6 weeks, right? And instead of 5 weeks. So that would be an issue potentially. Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer. Oh, if you want to talk, Maya, you can go ahead and hop in here.
Yeah, no, thanks, Palmer. I just wanted to also say that one potential con that I was thinking of about moving elections to week 7 is that it would give like a candidate less time to like hire their leadership for the following year. And I know that that's something that like a lot of like new council members do at the end of the year. And so like, I think that might be worth considering as well.
Okay, in terms of just like building your team as a candidate, you would rather have more time. So you would want the elections to be wrapped up sooner.
Yeah, I mean, I like personally probably would have like want that, like if I was like in that position at the end of this year, but I know that like that may not be the case for everyone.
Right. And I think another thing I was kind of thinking about with putting it into week 7 is that I think that's how it had been done historically. So I don't think it's like something that like, I know it would definitely help you get more staffers, but it's not something that like hasn't been done before and like is impossible. And then also just in terms of like midterm season, I feel like week 7 is more of a break for midterms than week 6, but also I could be wrong. Like it really depends, I don't know about these schedules. Then whoever else has their hand up, you can go ahead and just hop in here. I'm not sure who had theirs up first, but I guess it doesn't really matter. If any questions, I'm totally down to answer.
I would just second the timing for hiring, especially when you're, you first went. It's a lot of work to kind of get hiring off the ground, and then the transition period from like transitioning old staff to new staff, it can be really short within those 3 weeks. Between like week 7 and week 10 hypothetically. So it would be worth considering potentially moving it up to week 6. I know it's just a week, but that can help with transitions and with like leaving more time for people to apply.
Okay, definitely.
Yeah, I kind of think along those lines, one of the things that I think can be really helpful is also the transition time that sometimes offices give. So for example, when candidates will meet like with their predecessors, for example, to like talk about how to like continue moving forwards. And if that coincides with like midterms, it might continue to, or sorry, not midterms, finals, it might continue to like delay when the new officers can like start doing their work. And so I feel like that might be another reason for maybe moving it up to week 6 as well. But I did have a question for Josh. I don't know if this is an issue at all. I just kind of wanted to bring it up in case it is. Like if we have like an end date for our terms, or if we just end whenever the elections calendar says we do for like current council.
Yeah, so great question. Current council actually ends when the new board, the new council gets sworn in. So what will end up happening is you will host your last meeting. At the end of the meeting, you will swear in, well, not you, I believe Palmer will swear in the new, is it Palmer or is it the Chief Justice? I think it's the Chief Justice. Palmer, apologies. Chief Justice, thank you, Pasa. I've got COVID brain. But yes, the Chief Justice will swear you all in, or the next board in, and then after that, you all are done, and then the next board takes over.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much for that clarification, Josh. Okay, so that's not a problem. I was just like, I don't know if you had to like think about our dates at all. And then I just had one more question. I noticed that in the like the calendar that you gave, it said specifically like online campaigning. And I guess I wanted to ask, like, are you planning to release any regulations or anything for in-person campaigning? I know that we don't know what spring will look like, but like I did notice that it said online, and I would be curious to know, like, are you going to be requiring then that candidates exclusively campaign online, or are there going to be like dual frameworks? I'm just like curious how you're planning on like addressing the, I don't know, I mean, I know it sucks, we can't like know what modality will look like, but I'm curious how you're planning on addressing that, or like what you're thinking of, because yeah, just because I noticed it did say exclusively online in the like slide.
I mean, I think my priority is just making sure as many people as possible hear the information. So as poorly advised or not the school's policy is, I think it would just be our responsibility to kind of follow along with that. If there's people on campus, there's campaigning on campus, that just makes sense to me. But the wording online campaigning is just in there because that's like what I copied over from last year. But you can just think of that as campaigning begins. But I'm assuming most people would start with online, so that would be kind of the first, like, if you're gonna post a graphic, that's the first day you can post a graphic, so online. But like you could run onto campus that hour and put a sign, or whatever you want to do for online campaigning. So and again, gotcha. the in-person rules are going to be something that we're all going to have to kind of take another look at, because most people just kind of put in the back of their mind. So I'm sure there's going to be some other things that come up with that. But in terms of the date of it starting, that would be the day. So yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think as long as there's like a conversation around what in-person looks like, that might be good. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you so much, Palmer.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, did you have another question that I didn't answer? I feel like Hermana.
I think you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was just voicing that stuff about the timing, but I was more just curious about the in-person stuff. Yeah, thanks, Palmer.
Sounds good. Okay, then I think Sarah, you were next. You had anything?
Yeah, hi Palmer. I wanted to second what everyone said about week 6, but also I'm sure you're already planning on doing this, but for the shortening the 5 days, I just ask that your marketing team really like make that change clear online. I agree. Like, I think the shortened time will pressure people to vote more than the 9-day period, but I want to make sure like people don't feel like we're suddenly springing this on them and taking away time to vote.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting kind of seeing people's reaction, but I think because you all have such a good reaction so far, and also like, I don't want to sound like a negative person, but if only like 20% of the student body voted last year, and then like let's say 5% of those were seniors, like there's only 15% of people who've actually cast a vote before on campus. So like that would be the people that are going to be thrown off by that, I guess. And then those are also the people who are probably the most informed in terms of like when to vote and how to vote. So yeah, I will keep that in mind. I think, Sarah.
Thank you.
And then Promise, did you have anything?
Yeah, thanks so much for like bringing these to council. I just had like a few concerns. I think like in regard to just like the calendar, I guess like I'm kind of concerned because like when we put out like the election calendar, I feel like candidates should be able to like know like all of like the important dates, but like not all of them are in the calendar. So like when we put the stuff out incomplete, it poses a bit of a challenge. So that's something that I did want to kind of highlight so that we can kind of address that and like make sure that candidates are like getting all of the information that like they need to know, like the dates that they need to be like available ahead of time.
Right. Okay. So specifically, was that the events that you said you were missing? Could you just point those out so I can view?
Yeah, I think just like having like a bit more like concrete like times, and I think we're also just like having the discussion currently like about like when the election should end or like when campaigning should end, and such. So like I think just like kind of having it a bit more solidified is kind of something that I wanted to just encourage and like have us kind of solidify, because I don't think we can, like, I wouldn't feel comfortable like approving the calendar currently as is without kind of making a few significant changes to the time frame, etc. So
Okay. Yeah. So I think this is like why we're meeting, is like talk about any of this. So yeah, do you have anything specific that you want me to add or clarify on here? I think also in general, just like the formatting, like I'll get my media team to like make it look prettier. This was just kind of to get the dates like in y'all's brains. But yeah, if you want to talk about anything, Thomas.
yeah, I think like something that everyone else has kind of also been talking about is just like the time frame. In general, it's really long to be in an election. It's just like a really long time because elections aren't necessarily the most fun times, but we're also like in school. So I think just like keeping that in mind for students, I think a week 6 end time, like last quarter, like that was like a compromise. It kind of just gets hard regardless throughout the quarter. But if we don't like vote till week 7, then council members can't be sworn in until the following week 8, which then means like folks can't start hiring until the end of week 8, etc. So it does like mess things up to a degree, because then like students are having to transition like their like successors during finals week, trying to graduate, like etc. So like that's kind of like that's something. But that would also just kind of mean moving a lot of the dates as well for everything else.
Okay, so I think kind of the decision then would be, do we approve the oh sorry, okay, yeah, one sec, and then I'll let you speak, Hasa. Sorry. Basically it's like between, what I'm getting is we're between, do we approve this version as it is right now, or do we approve the version as it was last year? We want it the exact same as last year, because the only difference again is going to be here, right? The elections are week 7 and then the election days are shortened. So if we're cool with the election being shortened to 5 days, that's fine. And then the only thing that would really be that we're in between would be either moving it to week 7 for the actual election or not. I kind of formatted it in this way to be sure that we can kind of get a decision in this meeting, because we want to get candidate packets out as soon as possible, but so we can have lots of candidates. So if this is the main issue and this is what we want to look at, I'm totally cool with pushing the elections or putting the elections back on week 6. I personally have no, like, you guys have great points with that. I totally agree. And then I guess we can talk like pros and cons about that before we make that decision. But Pasa, you can go ahead and lay it on me.
Hey Palmer, thanks for bringing this to council and explaining it to us. Basically, I'm kind of concerned about only having 5 days. I noticed that, for example, voting closes at 2 p.m. on a Friday, which is a little awkward, I would say. The second thing I would like to add is that, maybe you should also, like, I notice also all these days are weekdays, right? And I know that some students work, or, some people have packed classes, right? Especially, students taking a lot of lower division classes. And if we want to involve those individuals, especially first and second years, it would be good if you added, either the 8th, the Sunday, or maybe you extend to Saturday. Does that make sense? Like, have at least one weekend day.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so your ideal situation then would be just moving this whole block over to the 14th here.
Yeah, I think it also solves the problem of your awkward 2 p.m. Friday end time. So
yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah, I think the only reason that the end time is 2 p.m. is so that the results can be announced in a reasonable time. But yeah, I agree that could be a little awkward for someone who's like, oh, I was gonna vote on Friday. Cool. So yeah, I'm totally cool with that. Just putting this on the 14th then. Anything else?
I wanted to Sorry, I just wanted to interject really quickly and suggest, because the reason is because of the like getting the results like on the same day. Like I would honestly suggest starting voting on like the Thursday the week before and then ending it on the 13th still. So then you have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that whole week.
Promise. You're
Yeah.
suggesting that we exactly like it opened like last year, so it opened on Friday and then it closed the following Friday, or?
I like that, or the Thursday that opens on the Thursday.
Okay.
So it gives like folks like a weekend and a day, like plus a week.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the times, well, at least I remember from last year, the votes kind of entered earlier.
Yeah.
Anyways, and it helps that it's on a weekend, so we can get more outreach. Yeah, I second that, passive. Okay, so do we want to go about revisions right now? Like, I don't know if you're okay with doing that, Palmer, while we go through our other items, or like you can just vocalize them and like we can vote on them. I just don't know like how people feel. Like, do people want to see it in person? Do you all want to vote on it next week? Like, to also give Palmer space and time because it is Tuesday evening. So I don't know, like, where's everyone at? Palmer, yourself included. Like, do you want to wait? Do you want to?
Ideally, I would like to get this approved today. I have no problem with just doing everything y'all need me to do with this. So it will get approved real quick and then just knocking it out today. If people want a week to look at it and just want to do that, I'm cool with that also.
Council members, can I get anyone's thoughts, please? I don't know if that was an old hand or anything, but.
It's new. I was just gonna suggest like something that offered it last year, and I think Palmer's kind of like offering to do it, just editing the calendar while he's here, and we move on to something else and come back to it to see like the updates, and then kind of people discuss there, decide if they feel comfortable voting for that.
Okay. I think that everyone is agreeing with Thomas. Okay. Yeah, cool. Erman?
Yeah, I think we should vote on it today for sure. Especially so that Palmer's team has more time to like make graphics about things and like start to like put like the final dates and stuff into things that are accessible to the candidates, because I know that that stuff takes time, and I think it would be like more fair to the peeps that are like doing the student labor on the elections board to like have the opportunity to start to work on things as soon as, you know, we approve them. And I know that Palmer has more to talk about next week too. So yeah, I think maybe if we can like, I like what Promise said about like coming back to it after Palmer's like put in the edits, and then like we can have our like discussion and vote then as to like whether there's anything else we wanted to add, or if we're cool of like approving it based on like those amendments. But yeah, I think it's important that we do get it done today.
Cool. I appreciate that. I'll get started on that right now, then just send something in the chat when I'm done. Should be like 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Amazing. Okay, sounds good. In the meantime, okay, wow, there are a lot of things on the agenda. Okay, we can go off with Haley, the foster youth.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. I can go ahead and share my screen. The scholarship. Also, Cass, are you able to promote Sylvia Hopkins?
Yeah, I can do that.
Cool. Okay, so basically I'm gonna give, well, is she promoted? Let me see. Okay, cool. Now that Sylvia's promoted, I'm going to go ahead and give her the space to go ahead and present the emergency funding scholarship for former foster youth at UCLA impacted by COVID-19. Okay, go ahead, Sylvia.
All right. Hello, everybody. How are you doing tonight? So my name is Sylvia Hopkins, and just for a little bit of an introduction, I am a member of the Bruin Guardian Scholars, which is our foster youth program here at UCLA, and that's also where we're requesting the funds for. And I'm also the co-director for Haley's Foster Youth Advocacy Platform. So just like a brief summary of what we're going to be asking for is an expansion of our emergency services for foster youth at UCLA. Thank you, Haley. So just like starting off about talking about disparities, overall foster youth, about 4%, and by a lot of estimates that is generous, end up getting a bachelor's degree. And that is just completely dire because it's about 50% of the general population. When we look at UCLA a little bit more specifically, UCLA has a graduation rate of over 90%, but only about 3/4 of foster youth are going to graduate. We also see that foster youth are extremely impacted by COVID, more so than the general population. In California, about 22% of foster youth experience homelessness, and about more than 2/3 had their housing situation impacted. Sorry for tripping on my words. So what this fund is going to do is it's going to be money that students can access when they have an emergency, and these emergencies are going to be self-defined, and they can, oh, thank you, Haley. And they can mean a lot of things. Mostly they're going to mean housing, it could be food, it could be medical services, technology, just pretty much anything that a student is going to need. So who is BGS and how many students? We have about 300 students that actually participate in BGS. We are a very, very small percentage of the population here, less than 1%. We also have an expanded definition of foster youth. So we also include kinship care, which means like being placed with family other than parents, group homes, unaccompanied minors as undocumented immigrants, and guardianship care. And so the program just is about meeting the needs of students, especially with such a vulnerable population. So as far as funds will be distributed, we already do have an emergency fund, but what we're asking for is an expansion. Paulo Velasco is the director of the Bruin Resource Center, and after talking about him, what will happen is the Bruin Resource Center and Bruin Guardian Scholars, which is under that, will get the lump payment, and then we'll distribute it as we get requests. So students will be able to request funds the same way that we do our general emergency scholarship. It's a simple Google form. It asks for base information, what they're requesting, why they're requesting it, and like some other just questions like have they used it in other resources. So we are asking for $40,000 of the surplus, and we estimate that about a maximum of 75 students will apply to this scholarship. We are making that estimation based on how many people access our emergency scholarship year by year. For this year, we've had a little over 30 apply, and that was as of December. So that's how we're estimating it, because we don't usually, not all 300 are going to ask for funds every year. So with $40,000, if we have about 75 applicants, that will allot over $500 per student. And this amount can vary based on the need. And, but like this money, like it means like a lot, because, $500 or just, however much the student needs, that can mean the difference of being able to pay your rent, make your tuition payment, whatever it can be, because as you all should know, like this pandemic hasn't been easy, and there's definitely been students that have been more impacted than others. And that is all that I have for y'all. If there's any questions, please don't be shy.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, feel free to ask now. Cool. I think Emily and then Herman.
Hi, this seems like a really great proposal. Thanks for coming to present, especially Sylvia. I was just wondering, like, since like you mentioned that there is already this like structure in place, like, would you be able to like elaborate more on like how that works and like if this is like we're just like bolstering funding for like an established criteria or if it's adding additional like needs to be covered?
So it's going to be expanding funding for something we already have. So Bruin Guardian Scholars already has an emergency scholarship, but the problem we're running into is that COVID has strained the resources. We've seen a huge uptick in requests, and because of that, there's limits to like requests that can be handled. There's been like delay in like when students can actually get the money that they need, and students have also been capped in how much that they can request. So this money is just about expanding that cap so that we can like help students who need it.
Herman, if you want to go ahead.
Thanks, Haley. Hi, Sylvia. Thank you so much for giving us this presentation. I really appreciate you taking the time to work on this and put everything together. I had a very similar question to what Emily said. So a lot of it was asked, but I just had one more thing to add. So just in terms of like how students are selected, is it just the BGS program staff that make those selections, or in terms of that process? I guess I was just curious like what that looks like.
So as far as selection goes, it's not like we pick students over other students. We try to help pretty much everybody, but it is the Bruin Guardian Scholars professional staff that review these requests and then distribute the funds as needed. So it is pretty much like what will happen is we have Brianna and we have Jennifer, that's our and Tiara, who's new, and it's very exciting, but they'll get the request, they'll review it, and then they'll see if there's like any other resources that's available, but overall we do try to accommodate the request. But the review process is pretty simple and almost all of them are going to be approved. The only problem is like how much money they're going to be able to get.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you so much, Sylvia.
Great. Are there any other questions from other council members regarding the proposal? And if not, thank you so much, Sylvia, for coming out to present the proposal. I think since we're not voting till next week, I think we just move on to the next agenda item, right, Breeze? Okay.
Thank you everyone for letting me present, and I am going to go ahead and go because I have a assignment due tonight. But everyone has a wonderful night, and yeah, I hope you all are staying safe even though UCLA doesn't care, but have a nice night.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Great. Moving on to the next presentation. Carl?
Hey, my computer broke, so I'm like presenting on my phone right now. So y'all excuse me, okay?
Carl, do you want us to share screen?
Yeah, please.
Fernando, he might kill me.
Hold on. Last time I tried to open it, I didn't have access.
Oh, wait, let me see if I can give it to you real quick.
If anything, I can share my screen.
Oh, Cass, do you have it up?
Yeah.
All right, go for it. Yeah, it doesn't need to be Fernando. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Carl, just let me know when I should go to the next slide.
Okay, bet. Thank you. All right. So hey, how's it going, everyone? Tonight I'll be presenting the USAC surplus proposal for the Student Union Event Fund. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the Student Union Event Fund was established in 1963 through through 1974 fiscal year by the ASU-CLA Board of Directors. And when it was designed as a funding source to encourage student programming within the student union. So this fund allows students or organizations to request money for their events that are taking place in UCLA facilities. Next slide, please. So the student organizations that qualify for this are student orgs that are registered with UCLA Student Org Leadership and Engagement Office, which is SOL. And it must be initiated, planned, and produced by the sponsoring student organization. The SUE Fund will not fund events for university departments, off-campus organizations, or non-student university organizations registered with the Center for Student Programming. Next slide, please. So this goes a little in depth into what qualifies for the SUE Fund, and that's obviously events that are taking place in ASU-CLA event venues and meet the minimum attendance requirement. And this paragraph kind of goes a little bit in depth in regards to which events qualify. So typically, from speaking with the director of this fund, when students apply for this and there's funding, there's, they can apply and have their entire event paid for, or they'll end up paying like $5 or $10 for something. And they also can apply as many times as they want. And if the funding's there, then the funding's there. All right, next slide, please. All right, so the SUE Fund is normally funded through student purchases of on-campus goods. Obviously, we've been on, online a couple quarters, especially over the last year and a half. So that has affected the overall funding of the SUE Fund. And this fund ultimately is just to, kind of take what students spend on campus and kind of give it back to them in a sense. So they've been affected by that because we've been online. Next slide, please. So these are some organizations that have applied for the SUEF in the last year. Now, when I spoke to the director, there were over, I think, 1,400 requests. And typically the only reason the requests get denied is either because of admin paperwork, was it submitted in time, or the fund just doesn't have any money, which they're at that crossroads currently. Next slide, please. All right, so this is this is a little bit more in depth in regards to the deficit. So the 2018-2019 line right there shows the funding requests, right? So those were the requests that they got monthly. And that was the last full year before COVID happened, obviously, right? And then the line above that shows how much is currently budgeted, which the SUE Fund, I think it has $149. So the last couple of organizations that have applied have been denied because they don't have the funds. So as you can see, there's negative $39,000 right there in regards to the difference from the funds that were requested and then the funds that are currently budgeted for this year. Next slide, please. All right, so how much? So basically, the SWE Fund is typically able to budget and give out approximately $149,000 per academic year to student organizations on campus. This year, the funding from SUEF is currently sitting at $89,000, which means that the fund is short approximately $60,000 due to the pandemic affecting on-campus purchases, right? So this has resulted in some student organizations being denied, as we kind of spoke about earlier. And so in order to, fulfill these requests of student organizations, because there's going to be a lot of events coming up, right? A lot of students, and I think some of you can speak to this yourself, have postponed their events for the spring quarter, right? And obviously the spring quarter is typically where events ramp up. So we want to make sure those students got that money when they're going to apply and, do things on campus. So we're asking for $48,000, which is still short of the $60K that they're currently missing right now, and they're short. but we think that some of that will be able to be made up when we go back online. But there's obviously there will still be some budget deficits. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can ask me right now, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Carl. Do any council members have any other questions? If not, okay, great. We can move straight into the BBRC proposal. Miss Ange? What? Oh, I'm so sorry. Tom? I can't see that. And then Emily.
Yeah, I just want to ask, since I wanted to ask, like, if you knew what the utilization rate of SUF has been over the past couple years that we've been in the pandemic, and like the utilization rate of it this year, and if they've used their entire operational budget, because I think I'm curious, and I asked also just to help inform my decision, or how I feel, because I know events on campus haven't really necessarily been happening, especially in ASUCLA spaces, up until this past quarter. So yeah, so CUF funding, it's kind of people haven't been able to use it. So I guess I'm trying to understand that. So I don't know if you have answers.
I might be able to answer that. Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. So for the fall quarter, we fully utilized our funding. Actually, we overutilized. We had to deny a couple groups based on a lack of funding. For January, all groups that had to postpone, we're letting them keep their funding for future use. And then we are anticipating an expansion of events coming into the fall into the spring, as we have rescheduled a lot of the programs to be later in February and to the spring quarter. Hopefully that explains.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Emily?
I'm also just wondering about so for all of I guess this would be for in-person events, right? I'm just not sure how comfortable I am thinking about allowing for more money for in-person events. Is that something that there's guidelines on with this proposal?
You mean wait, what do you mean? I mean, the UCLA has already got guidelines that they've already kind of came up with, and I think that they're going to still have those guidelines when we go back on campus. So this funding is for the requests that are going to be made, because we're going back in person. So there's going to be requests. There have still been requests, even though we've been online. So we just want to make sure that money's there for those students to use, especially when we have a surplus like we do. Does that answer your question?
I guess so. I don't know. I'm just kind of also hesitant, because I'm wondering if a better use of funds would be to go to an org like BOD, a funding body like that, because there's just greater applicability of that funding, including event spaces, if it were to go to something like BOD.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can look into I haven't looked into BOD, but from speaking with this organization that we currently have the proposal for, the one that typically allocates $149,000 to the students that request it, this is this organization here is the one that's missing the funds, right? That only has $89,000 because of the pandemic currently. So this is the organization that I'm trying to help currently. I don't know about BOD though, but I mean, obviously you're free to draw up a proposal for them.
I can probably give a little more clarity if that's okay.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So the funding that ASUCLA gives to BOD is the same similar funding that we give to the Student Union Event Fund. So essentially the Student Union Event Fund is open to all students that have events in ASUCLA. So they would just, when they book their event venue, they just fill out a short survey and they are then qualified to receiving funds to cover their expenses for the venue. So they can still then apply for BOD to cover their honorarium or any additional rentals that they have for their program. This just covers their operating costs from the venue. So it's all very similar pots of funds, just different funding bodies, if that clarifies.
So I don't know, but I did not hear that part. I don't know if anyone else did hear that. Like the part that you were clarifying, actually.
I heard it, so I'm not sure it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that better now? I took off my headphones.
I guess, Patty, if you can just restate what you said again. Because I think
Yeah, I was just letting you know. So the funding that ASUCLA provides for BOD is essentially the same pot that we apply for the Student Union Event Fund. So ASUCLA BOD Programming, USA Programming Fund is essentially the same interaction fund. So this is just another way that we're able to instantly connect to the student organizations that have venues that are in our building. So when they book their venue, then they can fill out a short survey to qualify for those costs of the venue to be covered by Student Union Event Fund. And then usually they would apply for BOD for honorarium, additional cost associated with their event outside of the venue costs. But yes, it is very similar in regards to programming.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to also mind chiming in as well from a registered campus organization standpoint to going off what Patty is talking about. BOD is very strict deadlines. You can only apply to it once every quarter, whereas the Student Union Event Fund is a much more fluid fund where students can apply to it on a very short-term basis without an extensive, runway on it. So it's also something to think about as too, is the stricter deadlines, and Student Union Event Fund is much more easier on the short term. You can access it if the money is available, as Carl was pointing out.
Also, for the utilization part that Promise kind of brought up, I kind of spoke with the director for, if it's not utilized for whatever reason, if Omicron gets worse, obviously the students or the organizations that get approved for funding, they'll be able to hold on to that funding even if they don't use it. But if for some reason it starts to cross into the new fiscal year, obviously we've talked about ways to return those funds so that, it can be utilized in other ways.
Jane?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask for, like Carl or Patty, I guess, what has been done for this fund in the past if there hasn't been enough like money for it, and if like allocated, would this money just go to UCLA if it isn't fully used, or would it go to back to council, I guess, if it wasn't fully used? Because I feel like a lot of, like, I think Emily or maybe Promise mentioned this, a lot of events are getting canceled this year, or moved hybrid, and like Emily said too, I think events are still in a pretty precarious situation right now, because as Breeze mentioned earlier, like the campus does have guidelines regarding COVID, but they don't seem to be super honestly sufficient, given that epidemiologists have said that the guidelines that we have aren't super great. So I am also just concerned about that aspect. But yeah, I just wanted to know, in the past, where would this money have gone, or what would happen to this fund if there wasn't enough money, and what would happen to the money from surplus allocated to this fund if it wasn't used?
So to answer your first question, of like what this fund has typically done when there's not enough money in the pot, I think you got to understand. Obviously, this is like, we're dealing with something that's been over like a year and a half, which is COVID. So, this is a new thing, and I think that this is the first time that the fund is dealing with something like this of this nature. But I would say that it's like people request money and they don't get it. I think that's what happens when there's no money within the fund. And then for like, let's say we do get the money for this fund, if it gets approved or whatever amount that council agrees upon, it'll go to the fund, and then hopefully enough people are able to apply for it, which is typically what's going to happen, right? Because they typically give out $149,000. And if for some reason they're not able to hold in-person events, they get to continue to hold that money, right, for their office. It's still budgeted for their organizations and their offices. And if for some reason it doesn't get used past that, right, let's say that there's like a crazy spike in Omicron or some crazy new variant, then we'll work out something with the student union fund like administrator to ensure that money comes back to USAC so we can distribute it in whatever way possible. But that's like a worst case scenario. Does that answer your question, Jane?
Yeah, thank you.
Jenny?
I was just going to add a quick note, because this is something that contingency is also doing, is that if, for instance, funds were allocated and events have to be canceled and students do not plan to have those events in the future, like for instance, if they were specific to winter quarter, SGA is able to close those accounts and return those funds to the main student union event fund. And therefore, if things are back in person, spring or later, then that money can be in the larger pot to be reallocated out. So even if specific organizations do decide to cancel events due to whatever may happen in the next couple of weeks, that money can still be used for spring quarter, hoping that spring quarter is in person. But yes, just a note.
Thank you, Jenny. Tassa? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I just had a question or two questions. So I think on one of your slides you talked about how previously there were problems with people getting funds because of admin problems with paperwork. Could you elaborate on that a little more?
Yes, from speaking with one of the administrators for this fund, that was used as a way of let's say there were over 1,000 requests, right? And the only ones that were denied were typically because of the paperwork didn't get to the administrators within the time of the event. Obviously, all things dealing with funding have a time frame on them. So that was one of the examples that were brought up, right? Because I asked the administrator, I just wanted to ensure that the money, I wanted to see for whatever reason, why wouldn't a student get approved for this money? And obviously, long as it follows the guidelines of slide 2, I think that I brought up in regards to what qualifies as an event for this funds, and then as long as the paperwork is in a timeable fashion. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just have a little bit of a follow-up then. I guess then my next question is, given those details of I guess those past problems, why would this be preferred over BOD? How is it exactly more flexible, right? That's just my next thing.
I think you might want to ask Emily that. She's the one that brought up the BOD argument. I don't really know too much about BOD.
I don't really think that's an argument. I'm just a little confused, right? With that, the paperwork stuff too.
I was just gonna jump in and say BOD
kind of like Orlando had said, it is very strict deadlines. Like if you wanted to apply for funding for like winter quarter for BOD, you have to apply in the fall. Whereas SUF, it's like rolling applications throughout the year. So like it's, if you're having an event, like that application's constantly open and like you can constantly apply to SUF and there's like not a limit on it. And it really is just like, if there's funding, like first come, first serve basis that ends up paying for not the use of the facility, but the use of labor and like equipment and such, because use of facilities doesn't cost money. So yeah.
I see. Then like, I guess like, I want to ask about the ask then. Like, I kind of want to see the market sizing argument for like $48,000. At least in previous surplus proposals, folks have given like, you know, how they did the math. So I was just like curious as to how you got to like exactly $48,000.
Okay. Can you pull the slides back up? Who's ever in charge right
now? Hold on one second. Patty, do you mind muting? Thank you.
Is it this slide?
Oh, can you go to the next one?
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. All right. So I think it's pretty simple math. I said that like from speaking to the director from the SUE fund, we talked about how typically the fund gives out approximately $149,000, right? Currently, they're sitting at $89,000, which means that they are short approximately $60,000, right? And so, you know, from speaking with the administrator, you know, they didn't want to ask for that full amount. They said that, you know, honestly, anything helps. But I thought it would be appropriate to give $48,000 based off of the, and can you go back to the other slide, Cass, please? Thank you. Based off of like, so 2018, 2019 was like the last normal year. I think most people would agree with that, right? Within the last couple of years. 2018, 2019 was the last normal year. And during this normal year, the funding requests were approximately 16,000, 14,500, 17,500, 24,000, and 15,000, right? Within a normal year. Right. And so currently, because of this year and because of the lack of funds, the Student Union Event Fund has 9,000. Well, I mean, obviously you can see those, right? So they have like almost, you know, it's less than half budgeted for a normal year, right? And, you know, this is looking to be like a normal year when we get back. Obviously, there's still some COVID guidelines and procedures that have to be followed, but as we stated before, once students who, you know, there's over 1,000 requests, right? Like when students apply to this fund, even if they don't get to hold their event for whatever reason, they're still allowed to maintain their money and keep it in their pot. So that's how I got to the number. Me and my team kind of looked at it, and obviously we knew that there would be a lot of requests from USAC members, so we didn't want to ask for the full 60,000. Especially when we're going to be going back in person, and which means that hypothetically sales should start back and they should be able to receive some sort of money, right? So yeah, I hope, does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Fernando?
So first of all, thanks, Jenny, for supplying all that information on the different types of funds. But I'll promote you to panelist, Angie. So what I just wanted to add was, like Jenny said, a lot of these other funding bodies have a cap. So basically what I think what happens is because the Student Union Event Fund is a pretty seamless application that they can apply to whenever they reserve, I think what it does, it helps the student orgs cover for a lot of their event with the student event fund, and then their contingency and their BLD and their other supplemental funding can cover other things. So at the end of the day, because they're different funding orgs, they don't have the same cap. So that also increases their funding at the end of the day.
Okay. I don't know, do folks have any more questions? Again, reminder, like, want to make sure that, yeah, questions are being answered, but also like allowing folks to like have, you know, everyone allowed a presentation, as well as like, you know, understanding that we're going to be voting next week. So did folks have any more questions, or are we good to go? Yeah, I think, yeah. Well, no, Cass, I thought next week is the last week for presentations, and I do think that we should try to vote next week, just because we are entering, like, I think week 6 is like really chaotic, as well as like elections coming up. So I was hoping that we could have votes next week. Yeah. So just to summarize, we are going to allow presentations through next week. However, I do want to make sure that folks are prepared to vote next week as well. And Cass, if you need support with that, we can connect offline. But thank you so much, Carl. And yeah, great. Okay, moving straight into Angie's proposal with the BDFC, and I could support with that as well. Angie, need support with presenting it.
Yeah, thank you, Breeze. I think Palmer has his hand up though. Oh wait.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
I just wanted to let you know I'm ready to go whenever.
Okay, did you want to present right now before? Because you might want to leave. So.
Yeah, if that's okay, if that works for you all, I can just do it real quick. All right, awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt anyone. Okay. So what I did was I went ahead and made 3 different versions here. There's really small differences between all of them, so you can just kind of go ahead and decide which one's the best. First is just with passes edit here, and that would just be extending voting for this 7th here, and then again moving this back a week. So this is all happening on week 6. Voting would start Monday, debates end this Friday here. So that's one version. This is another one here. Same thing. We're gonna have this vote extended to this Saturday, and then we would actually start voting this Thursday, like Promise suggested. The only issue I had with that was I needed to move the debate over. I will put this doc in the chat. Sorry. I can put all 3 in the chat also. So yeah, the only issue that I had was having to move this debate over. This is version 1. This is version 2. This is version 3. I'm gonna need to give everyone permission on these also. Sorry. Boom. Okay. Let's do that with all these. And so basically, with that last version, the issue is that the debates would then be on Wednesday and Thursday, and that is Wednesday and Thursday week 5. So that would definitely hinder attendance, which could be an issue. And then the voting would start that night right after the debate concludes. I'm not really comfortable starting voting before the debates are over, because I want to be sure everyone has a chance to hear the candidates, and the candidates all get a chance to speak their minds before any sort of voting happens or is available. Because what I would hate is for someone to vote and then be like, oh man, they said something really good, and then they can't change their vote. So that is the issue with this version. But if you all like it, I'm good with that. So then we have this one, which is just basically a compromise between the two here. And that would be the debates do get moved over, but voting would then start on Friday instead of starting that night, which I kind of liked better just because it kind of gives things a second to breathe. But then again, we would have the debates here on Thursday or on Wednesday and Thursday. So my personal favorite, I like this one, but I know you all have concerns about wanting more time for voting. So then these two are also good options. I think this one is a good compromise between the two issues and kind of solves everything we were worried about. And then again, these debate times are a little more flexible. I think the most important thing that we decide on right now is the voting, because even last year, like we didn't even have we decided the 2-day debate scheme like a couple weeks before. I don't even think that was like, it was a whole different thing that didn't get approved this early on. I think that happened during election season. So that is all, could also be subject to change, but I just want to be sure we're all agreed on the voting. So I don't know if anyone has any opinions between this option here with 9 days of voting versus this option here with 10 days of voting, or this option here with 6.
Momina?
Big.
So I do hear the concerns with like ending voting on a Friday, but I do think that with voting ending on Friday and like announced and results being announced Friday night, it gives like candidates who won that weekend to kind of prepare. Whereas like having it end basically like mid-weekend only gives Sunday for typically like what people like the candidates who win will do will prep like, you know, their hiring documents and promoting that. So by doing it on Friday, it gives more time for people to, you know, like kind of meet. But I do agree that like it is an awkward day and there should be like weekend days. So that could, yeah. So I agree with Pasta and Jane in the chat, like moving it back from, I don't know which tab it was, which option, but yeah, I definitely think it could be like Sunday the 1st. Yeah, like one of these.
Okay, so that means we can go ahead and just eliminate edit 1 here, and let's just talk about these two. We want to have weekend voting. Love that. It's great. And now we're thinking about just sliding this guy over to here. I'm totally fine with that. So let's just say we do that for both these. So boom. This goes here. Why are you doing this to me? Okay. And then this goes here. Okay, cool. So then we have this kind of layout, and then Promise, you have a comment here?
I lost my train of thought. I was gonna say, oh no, actually I remember it. And it's not, it's like it's related to this, but I guess admin would probably be able to answer better. Because folks are like bringing up very valid points about like like whoever wins, like they have like a day, like 2 days to kind of get ready and then have council on that Tuesday. I wanted to like know like if there was a possibility to give them a like they would get elected on the Friday, but they wouldn't be sworn in until like the following Tuesday. So like it also gives us as officers time to transition out in a way. But I don't know like if like admin or anyone knows kind of like what that process would look like, if that's something that like we were like it's in our bylaws that would be changeable. Yeah, so that was my question.
Yeah, so constitutionally, they do have to be voted in by the next USAC meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cass and Momina.
Oh, I just wanted to second what Promise said, and
I think, I don't know if this can be just like constitutionally or like a policy, but have like current council members kind of give them a transition period, because I know this is done, like it varies from office to office, but that could help for certain offices that like don't have that like there's not as much like continuity between the next office for like that transition period, even if like they're sworn in the following Tuesday, to have like kind of an informal transition period. And I guess that's something we can kind of establish amongst ourselves. It doesn't, I don't know, I'm not sure if it has to be formal, but if they have to be sworn in the following Tuesday, then it can be more on our end to transition people during the following couple weeks.
Okay, I think it's my turn. So this is an idea that was brought up by I think it might have been this year's council. So one idea that was brought up was that yes, they do get sworn in that following Tuesday. However, they don't need to have a meeting after the exiting of the outgoing council, because this idea was brought up pretty like on the spot. We couldn't really put it into practice, but in advance, I think we could try and make something like that happen. So there's a trend, like at least a week of transition for like their actual council meeting. If that's what we're interested in doing, then we can work together.
Thank you, Fernando. I'll definitely reach out because yeah, the transition is kind of brutal. Yeah, and so thank you.
Okay. Armand?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak really briefly on this point about the transition thing between like council, like within offices. Last year in the TSR office, we actually passed a bylaw change for the USAC bylaw, specifically for the TSR's bylaws, that like requires the TSR to meet with their predecessor within a week of being like confirmed or whatever, in order to like talk about the transition stuff. So it was something that at least for like the TSR office, we decided to institute through a bylaw change. And I definitely found that super useful because it meant that that transition was something that both the like new and previous TSR were kind of held to. And in that meeting, like I decided to have like more transition meetings, which the previous TSR was also like open to. But the only reason we were like able to have that conversation was because of the fact that like it was in the bylaws and it was something that was kind of, again, like put into like the policy for the TSR to do. So again, like there definitely might be like council-wide changes that can be made through like what maybe like Fernando suggesting, that the first new council meeting doesn't take place on the same night as the previous council's last meeting. But I also think it might be worth it to like revisit your own bylaws in the USAC bylaws and see if there's anything that you wanted to add there, because that was something that worked for us at least. But yeah, just wanted to put that out there to add to this part, and also say that I support a Friday last day for voting.
Okay, so cancel. Okay, so what are folks thinking? Sorry.
So I just want to jump in. Palmer, have you met with my UCLA to reserve rooms? One of the other challenges that we do need to do before this officially gets voted in, I think you do need to meet with my UCLA to make sure that rooms and locations are put onto this calendar so that there's full transparency as the master calendar. I think we can move forward with the idea of which calendar we like the most. But I do have to encourage you, you do need to meet with MyUCLA, get rooms booked, and make sure that they can move forward with the full election before we can officially vote this in as the official calendar.
Yeah, so I've sent this calendar to MyUCLA, and my plan for today, because I didn't think they would just like respond to me just like that. My plan for today was make sure council was happy, and then I could send this version to MyUCLA, because I don't think it would be worth it to like go back and forth so many times. So I wanted to just have a version they liked and then send it to MyUCLA and get it confirmed.
Perfect. So with that said, Breeze, I guess the question would be, does council agree with this outline? And if council agrees with this outline, then Palmer moves forward, meets with MyUCLA, and then we'll come back after meeting with MyUCLA to get an official vote in as the master calendar with all locations, dates, and times settled and confirmed.
Yeah. Sorry about Palmer. How does everyone feel about that? I just want to get a feel from the room. I'm going to take the side.
And that would be this one is definitely best here with voting starting on this Friday and ending on this Friday. So that's going to be a whole 7 days. I think having the voting open the same night as the debates ending is pretty messy, because it's probably going to be like scheduled. And if the debates went over, had some technical issue, it would just be really scary trying to like open voting that night when something happened in the debates. So this gives us a little more breathing room. I'm the most comfortable with this version.
Yeah, I agree with that, Palmer. So how is the rest of council feeling?
I'm comfy with this period, but I don't necessarily want to vote today if we don't have if we don't have a solid knowledge of my UCLA information about all of that, because if not, then we're gonna have to kind of re-vote. And if the calendar is supposed to go out to students next week and we vote on it and still it changes, I'm kind of just worried not everyone's gonna get all the information if they're not necessarily paying attention until the end or so. So I don't know.
I think the plan is to not vote on this right now officially. This is just kind of to see how you all feel and make sure these dates work so I can submit them to MyUCLA to get their second opinion here.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much, Palmer. So in that case, we'll probably see you next week once you've spoken with MyUCLA. And any other council member have anything to say about dates? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, perfect. We are good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all so much. See you next week.
Okay, great. Ange, on the BBRC surplus proposal?
Yes. Let me share my screen really quickly.
Okay, awesome. So we can go ahead and start. The BBRC surplus proposal was a proposal brought forward by a few council members. Angie, Promise, myself, Jane, Haley, Cass, and Taylani. And we just wanted to put this forth because we think it's really important. So yeah, Angie, you can go ahead and start off.
Oh, wait. Okay, sorry, it says my internet is unstable. So let me know if you all can't hear me.
Okay.
But I will give a little background on the history and mission of the BBRC, the funding needs, and the funding asks. So as a bit of background, and I'm sure Simone and Breeze can also jump in as well, but
The Blackburn Resource Center has been in the works for decades. Students involved with the African Black Coalition, which is a coalition of Black student unions across the UC and CSU systems, began calling for a Black Resource Center at all of their schools in 2015. And after some advocacy, the Blackburn Resource Center at UCLA was finally established in 2020 as part of the Chancellor's Rising to the Challenge statement. And so the stated mission of the BBRC, so the BBRC is the root of the Black connection and collective effort at UCLA and is an essential branch of support available to Black UCLA students, staff, and faculty at a departmental and institutional level. And it aims to provide direct access to resources housed within the space and in different locations on campus. It also aims to uplift, support, and inspire the UCLA Black and African diaspora community and cultivate community, family, and power, and serves as a safe space where the Black community can call home and be in community with each other. And so the vision of the BBRC is to support Black student retention and graduation rates, to promote Black mental health and wellness, encourage a sense of belonging and comfort in all areas of campus that include and extends beyond the BBRC, ensure inclusion of non-traditional students, cultivate a sense of resilience and empowerment for Black students, staff, and faculty, champion the interdepartmental relations of Black graduate students across campus, foster the pride of intersectionality within Blackness across campus, grow the number of Black students enrolling in UCLA yearly at the undergraduate, graduate, and professional levels, and provide programming opportunities, community engagement, and fellowship. So the funding needs of the BBRC, one of the main needs is an increase for space. And so Black students don't currently have adequate or comprehensive space to house academic and counseling resources, community events, and forums. And the current center within Kirchhoff Hall doesn't allow for adequate space to host sites and is not sufficient as an overall space for Black Bruins to study, congregate, and exist. The current space is currently 1,500 square feet, and it costs $100,000 to build, but it hasn't been sufficient in housing the many programs and resources for Black Bruins and the broader Black community, as Simone mentioned earlier during public comment. And so doubling the square footage to 3,000 square feet, which would be approximately $200,000, would allow Black Bruins to adequately have enough space to carry out these programs and initiatives, as well as to serve as a space that is large enough for all Black Bruins, both current and prospective students, alumni, and faculty to call home. So there's also an increased need for mental health resources and programming resources as well. So the BBRC aims to support students in response toward the multiple racially motivated crimes that have occurred within UCLA, police brutality and profiling and discrimination. The space aims to operate as a meeting location where students who face similar injustices across the UCLA community can coexist in healing and solidarity. And given the lack of racially and ethnically diverse CAPS therapists and the criminalization of mental health crises between CAPS and UCPD, it's pertinent now than ever that the BBRC can be accompanied with adequate mental health resources and programming. And additional programming needs include programming related to different events that the BBRC holds. So the BBRC functions as a location for different events that serve the broader Black community, including current and potential students, alumni, organizations, and more. So some of these events include a welcome event, an open house and end of year event, a Black mental health series, networking in the Black community series, and a host of other academic programming. Other events include the ASU general body meetings, the Harambe council meetings, different meetings through the umbrella organizations and retention programming, as well as events for celebrated holidays. And so programming is really aimed at centering the needs of Black Bruins. And so increased funding for programming would really help the BBRC be better equipped to handle issues pertaining to the Black community as they arise. And so for funding asks, we are asking for $200,000 for increased space, and then an additional $30,000 for mental health and programming funds, for a total of $230,000. And so after discussing with the ASU chairperson and staff members, as well as the rest of FTP, an estimate of $230,000 from USAC surplus would help fund the BBRC in supporting Black Bruins retention and academic success. And that is basically it. If y'all have any questions, or if Simone, you want to add anything, feel free to do so. But thank you all.
Great. Are there any questions from members? If not, okay, great. Thank you so much, Angie, for presenting. And yeah, thank you to all the council members for collaborating on this. Great. Moving straight into Books for Bruins. Angie, the floor is yours again.
Okay, can you all see this? Okay. So Books for Bruins, as I'm sure you all are aware, is a quarterly textbook subsidy program run by AAC that's meant to alleviate the financial barrier of purchasing expensive textbooks and other course materials for classes. And especially during the pandemic, we've seen how students are facing a host of challenges, including socioeconomic challenges like losing their jobs, having to support family and support themselves, and also having to take on extra jobs as well. And so we have seen an increased need for funding textbooks and other course materials, and it's really imperative that students continue to have access to these textbook scholarships to cover access codes, textbooks, and other course materials, so that students can receive an equitable and accessible education and receive the same course materials as their peers. And so for spring quarter, just for a bit of background, spring 2021, AAC received 107 applications, and we distributed UCLA store gift cards for a total of $10,150. And then for fall quarter last year, or for fall 2021, AAC received a total of 167 applications, and awards were distributed via paper checks instead of UCLA gift cards, and funds were awarded to meet student need based off of the amount that they purchased for their textbooks, up to $150. And so a total of $17,925 was awarded for Books for Bruins that quarter. And we were granted $18,825 from surplus for that quarter. And so now for winter quarter, we have received a total of 150 applications, and we will be distributing awards via check and UCLA gift cards as an option. And we estimate using approximately $16,600 this quarter, including the leftover amount from fall 2021. And for spring quarter as well, we are estimated to receive about 155 applications, and we estimate using approximately $17,000 this quarter. And so that would be a total of $33,600 for both winter and spring quarters that we are asking for in order to help cover the expected costs for students. Yeah, and we will be looking into doing a mix of both checks and UCLA gift cards for winter and spring based off of what is best suited for students. But yeah, that is the proposal.
Thank you so much, Ange. Great. Yeah, let's link it on the agenda if possible. Okay, so the Occu space is covered. Taylani for basic needs.
Yes. I think my team is coming.
If they aren't here, you can present next week as well.
Okay. Honestly, it's already done. So can we actually skip to the capital contingency and come back to me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Jen, you have the floor.
Hi. Okay, let me see. Okay, I can share screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is going off of what Fernando had just told us before. So right now there are currently 6 computers in Kirchhoff Hall that are outdated and need to be removed. Essentially, you know, in the last 2 years of the pandemic, some of them are just not able to turn on. Some have really outdated processing systems. And overall, the IT team determined that they are a security risk as they no longer receive certain updates from Apple. So the computer in my office is one such example, although it still turns on and functions. It is a 2014 model, and so it does not receive consistent updates. And so that would be damaging to the UCLA systems. Therefore, all those computers will be taken away and people will be requesting funding for new ones through capital contingency. So that's why I have the surplus proposal, because based on surplus guidelines, capital contingency usually gets $18,000. But with the spike, or with everyone returning back in person, I really anticipated that $18,000 to go towards furnishing a lot of offices and replacing some computers, but not all of them. Yeah, just as everyone's going back into Kirchhoff, everything's dusty, everyone wants to remodel, do some spring cleaning. So the basic costs per our capital contingency guidelines, the max you can request for a computer is $2,000, and that also includes lockdown equipment, so like a basic lock to tie your computer down to the office. And so as our latest, we've had 2 or 3 applications already for computers, and everyone has requested the full $2,000. That is simply because the cheapest MacBook or iMac on the market right now is $1,800 and 1878.15 cents. Sorry, I cannot talk today. There are other options too as well, like getting a Mac Mini and hooking up with any monitor, but that is also around $1,000. Student groups are more than welcome to buy non-Apple computers such as HP, like literally anything, which is more affordable, but historically Apple computers have just been the most popular. Therefore, the little ask would be, if we do not get allocated the full amount from surplus that we are asking for, I would just ask that if any council members are applying for computers, that you consider cheaper options, because capital contingency would not be able to fund like 6, 7, or 8 iMacs. So yeah, that's the basic number that I came up with. It's just that we know of right now that there are 6 computers that will definitely be taken away. And then the average computer price plus lockdown equipment that we receive for applications is the full $2,000. So for capital contingency, I'm just asking for an additional $12,000. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jenny. Any question from council?
Oh, I did have one question. It's kind of related to this proposal. Did we vote on the 18,000 for capital contingency already? because I would like, because I know the bylaws say it, but I think we're supposed to still vote on it.
No, I think that's supposed to be voted in with the rest of the allocation. So there's like 64,500 going to contingency programming. I think like 62,000 going to BOD, and then 18,000 that's supposed to go to capital contingency. And so I think when you guys do the vote on all of these presentations, you'll also be voting those in.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Do council members have any other questions? If not, thank you so much, Jenny. Great. Okay. Moving on to, okay, back to Ms. Tay. You have your presentation ready, right? Perfect.
Yes. And my girls are here. If you guys can raise your hand so that you can be promoted. Awesome. Okay. I'm gonna share my screen. Sorry guys, I have so many tabs open. Oh my goodness. Okay. Can you guys see it? I know it's like my laptop's overheating.
We can see it.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so basically today I'm going to be talking to y'all about the basic needs kit surplus proposal. Do you guys want to introduce yourself first, Isabel?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Isabel. I'm the Brew Necessities, one of the co-directors this year. Brew Necessities is a committee under Student Wellness Commission that works to provide basic needs for students on campus.
Hi everyone, I'm Janice. I'm an SWC intern right now, and I'm also the menstrual hygiene director at Brew Necessities, and I work with Isabel.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Okay, so yeah, last quarter I talked to y'all. I did like a special presentation on the basic needs subsidy, promoting that. The basic needs kit is the basic needs subsidy, but with a different model, which we'll get into.
So just to start off with some background, in 2020, when COVID-19 first hit, USAC Student Wellness Commissioner Mahika, she established a quarterly basic needs subsidy to provide basic needs essentials to students during the onset of the pandemic. Before this, we had occasional programming and kits as necessary, but this was the first kind of like every quarter we provided basic needs resources to students.
So right now, students have to apply for the subsidy in a very lengthy application process. The only kind of information we get from them are short answer questions, but after they apply, they wait for a long period of time before they're reimbursed for their purchases. They are sent these big PDFs of explanations on how to do this. They have to keep their receipt. They have to fill out a requisition form, and they wait weeks to get their money refunded. We still get emails today about students who are still waiting to get their refunds from last quarter. And it's important to keep in mind that the students that are applying for the subsidy are people who are most likely in crisis or just do not have the capacity to provide themselves with the basic needs. So this is really becoming an issue, and out of 250 applicants, only around half of them were able to actually benefit from the program. Our current basic needs subsidy team of 5 people had to process all of these applications during midterms and finals week, which has been really difficult. And as the subsidy program has been growing, we want to transition into a more effective and less time-intensive way to meet the health and wellness needs of students. Especially we're growing so much. We have 100 more applicants than the last quarter.
Great. So our goal, we have a lot of goals with this project, but just to kind of summarize, the Student Wellness Commission wants to keep continuing to like reimagine ways to like improve how we're meeting student needs. The basic needs subsidy, where it's like a reimbursement format that worked in a 100% virtual format, but now that we are moving to in-person again / hybrid, it's really important that we kind of reform and remodel what that basic needs subsidy will look like to better benefit students, especially since the reimbursement process is just not working. So essentially this new model will provide students with an easily accessible, overall easier method to access their basic needs and essentials. And also, like, unlike previous historical iterations of the subsidy / care package model, this new model still maintains that personalization, tailored resources that we kind of found in that basic needs subsidy of like fall quarter 2021. But it kind of eliminates, well, it fully eliminates labor on students where like they have to keep their receipts, they have to do the application, which is like super lengthy. They're only getting $100 worth of products. They have to wait for SGA to process it and then get refunded. They also have to wait for us to send the information to SGA. So it's just a long, drawn out process. And for students in crisis, it's just not practical or feasible for them to kind of have to undergo that. So essentially, SWC will alleviate the burden from students by overseeing all shipping, handling, inventory count, bulk ordering of all basic needs essentials. And then students can pick these items directly from the SWC office. And then when they come pick it up from the SWC office, we can also connect them with like a plethora of SWC / campus resources. And for students that are like remote and will not be coming to campus, we can also ship these products to them, which we'll get into.
So our plan for the modified rollout plan for the basic needs subsidy is to create a new committee under Brew Necessities that's responsible for overseeing the distribution and kind of the packaging of these care packages. So our current vision is to expand access to basic needs and resources through this committee. It's going to be responsible for, distributing this Google form. So Brew Necessities, if any of you guys have heard of our work, we have a track record of providing basic needs. We do a lot of the menstrual products on the Hill. You can get product boxes at every single front desk. We also do like the oral hygiene fairs every quarter. We do the screenings with the dental students. And we actually have been working with admin to get the menstrual products in every single bathroom on campus, which is super exciting. So seems like a perfect fit to put this new committee in charge of basic needs subsidy under Brew Necessities. Our plan thus far is to post a Google form, get it out there to all the students so that they can really access it and make sure that every student has equal access to this basic needs form, where they can select up to 7 full-size basic needs products, including cleaning products and hygiene products, additionally menstrual products, which would allow them to get up to 10 basic needs. And we're going to package the kits. This committee is going to be packaging the kits and then storing them at the SWC office, which is super central on campus. So it's really easy for students to access, ensuring that all students have access to these products, which are so essential for student success. And this new plan that we've made, we think it would really save students from having to purchase the products with their own money and waiting for reimbursement checks. I mean, personally, I applied for the basic needs subsidy and like I forgot to submit my rec and like I lost receipts. And so it just seems like a little bit difficult, especially with the in-person transition, to make students kind of do so much of that work when we could have our team that's so passionate about providing basic needs do that back work. So yeah, it would also be much quicker access because they wouldn't have to wait for reimbursement checks. We'd be able to buy those products in bulk beforehand and then provide those products as needed.
So just to summarize that, we created a visual for you. So first, students are going to be applying through the Google form for the 7 products or up to 10 if they need menstrual hygiene products as well. Brew Necessities is planning on creating a new committee just dedicated to making these orders into a reality and packing those kits. And then they'll be stored in the Student Wellness Commission office, and then it will be facilitated by the executive board, who hold office hours like around 8 to 5 almost every single day. And or otherwise we will be able to ship those packages to the students free of cost.
Yes. Also, just to add on, when we say apply, it's just literally them like checking off what products that they want. So like there's no like lengthy application process with this.
Here you can see some of the products we're planning on including in that application or request form. We definitely wanted to include cleaning products. Those are super essential for students. And then we wanted to do gender neutral hygiene products, and then also like menstrual products and soap and body wash. We chose these products because we really wanted to give students that kind of like personalized, that they still have good quality products and that they enjoy their products, while also being able to bulk order them and provide them like at a quicker rate than doing the reimbursement checks.
Yes. Also important to note is that we were able to gather this product list based off of what people were ordering and buying last quarter with the basic needs subsidies that they were granted. So all of these products have been tested and true, and these are products that students need because we kind of saw a pattern with these products being most frequently bought with the basic needs subsidy of fall quarter 2021. Okay, so now for the big finale. So in fall 2021, sorry y'all, I'm on duty tonight. Let's turn this out. Okay, in fall quarter 2021, $15,631.15 was spent on basic needs subsidy for 159 students. Like we said, we were going to spend like over 18,000, close to 20,000, but not all of the students, not all 250 students were able to complete the process because it's just so lengthy. So only 159 students did. So we spent $15,000, $15.6 thousand. And because of that, most of our money for basic needs is depleted because of the office budget cuts, the unexpected large number of basic needs subsidy applicants, and the hundreds of projects executed by the 11 committees of SFUC. And due to the ever-evolving nature of surplus, we don't want to rely on surplus for this project long-term. However, we do need surplus this year to continue meeting the basic needs of students through this new model. And then, you know, after like the following year, subsequent years with this new model like fully established, we can allocate our Student Wellness Commission fees, Brew Necessity fees to tailor to this new model in the beginning of the next academic year. So by funding this project, you'll be able to help us provide an avenue for students to access basic needs without institutional barriers. And because of that, we are requesting $20,000 based on the amount we spent on the fall 2021 basic needs subsidy, which was $15,631. Wait, $15,631.15. And the predicted amount that will need to be spent for students that will need their product shipped to them. So that's how we came up with 20K. That was a lot of information, and I'm so sorry that the slides are so word dense too. But yeah, any questions about anything? It's so done.
That was amazing, Tay.
No. Like, thank you for turning your camera on. I understand how you feel now. It's very like.
That's what I always ask you guys. It really sucks.
I couldn't do it.
No, Tay, that was amazing, and I love all the work that you're doing for SWE. Never cease to do great work, and thank you so much to her team also for coming to present. Great. Okay, we're getting through it, folks. Capital contingency computers. that already went. Oh, it's my turn. Okay, time to present earned. So, man, bestie, you ready? Let's go.
Let's do this.
So we got this. Okay. I have Simone here as well. She's been critical to this all. Okay. So I don't know if read through Brenda real quick. I'll read it. Sorry, but yeah, do we want to go through Ederman or do we want to just allow folks to read it?
I think we can go through it for transparency.
Okay, for sure. So I'll go ahead. I can take the first paragraph and then we can go from there. So earn, education, access, and retention now. Shall the Undergraduate Students Association address space, resource, and programming needs of the undergraduate students from historically underrepresented and marginalized communities by implementing a fee of $5 per undergraduate student per quarter, $3 per UC undergraduate student enrolled at UCLA in summer session, beginning in fall 2022. Do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, approval of the Earn referendum would provide the following. So the earned fee shall be used for the operational and programmatic initiatives of the Blackburn Resource Center and to support the operational costs of undergraduate students from historically underrepresented communities. The earned fee shall be used to cover the operational and programmatic costs of the Transfer Student Center, including but not limited to space, staffing, and services. The Undergraduate Students Association Council Cultural Affairs Commission will have oversight over all allocation of funds from this referendum, consistent with the above, and will present reports twice annually to USAC on the usage, programming, and maintenance.
Amazing. This fee will be adjusted annually by the Los Angeles County Consumer Price Index in order to address changes due to inflation and rising cost of living beginning in fall 2022. Consistent with UC policy, 25% of the amount collected will be returned to the undergraduate financial aid. Great. So this is just the language that we are proposing to be put forth on the ballot. I just want to hear like if folks have any questions, comments, concerns for Erman, myself, or Simone, who have been like working on this. And should folks have questions, like we are more than happy to answer questions, make amendments. We would like to pass this, not necessarily like have it voted on. Like again, your vote is not yes or no, I support this. It is yes or no, it should be on the ballot and let the student body decide. So again, like want to affirm that even if you are not in favor of this, your vote is solely so it can be on the ballot. And I think because so many students are affected by this issue, both like our transfer students and like our Black students at this university, I believe that, you know, at least allowing it to be on the ballot is the responsibility of, you know, folks that want to allow the student body to vote on this. So yeah, are there any questions, comments, concerns?
I just want to add a comment. Has been working with folks on this. Super important to allow the student body to be able to have the decision whether or not they want to support this. As council members, like that's what we are able to do, to just like at least put it on the ballot, whether you necessarily like support it or not. I think it's important to like emphasize choice and allow people choice, because it is like, it does have like need, and like we saw in the surplus proposal, like Black students are constantly disenfranchised, even when the university tries to make it seem like they're doing anything at all, when in reality, all of the progress that has been made towards any of it has been due to Black student leadership on this campus for the past, you know what, since forever. So yeah, like it's sucks that like students have to constantly be essentially advocating for themselves and like providing themselves their own resources. But if this is like, this will at least like help Black students in the meantime while we continue to fight for like our resources, because the like having a Black Resource Center without actually providing resources for it, and like doing a whole like PR thing, and showing up to things is just, it's sad on the UCLA administration's part. So yeah, I think so. I just want to say that.
Yeah, definitely want to reiterate that, and want to thank everyone on council. I also want to say that and speaking with Promise and like other members of council, like we just figured it would be a good idea to put it under the Cultural Affairs Commission, just because we do want to ensure that there is that passage, right, when there is a new elected person within like the Cultural Affairs Commission. That way, like there's better student management overview and like understanding that administration is not doing with these funds what they wish, or lying to students about where these funds are going to, and it'll be on the Cultural Affairs Commission to oversee that as well, which I want to thank Promise and like who have future folks of the Cultural Affairs Commission who if this will be doing that work. But yeah, are there any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, I think that it looks, oh, sorry, can you hear me? Okay, yeah, I think it looks like pretty great, and I think it's a like really great like referendum. I just wanted to ask, because I'm not like super sure about like in terms of like how it like looks on the My UCLA form. Is there the possibility to link like the more like in-depth presentation with like the budget breakdown on it? Because I know that there's like certain subsets of the UCLA population that like to scrutinize like oh, like where is this $5 like number coming from? So is it like possible to add that as a link?
Yeah, I think that was.
Yeah, I mean, I have endowment proposals. I think people also need to understand that what I've been asking the chancellor for, I'm not asking the students for. I'm not asking y'all for $40 million, because that's what we really need to run that center. We need like off that endowment proposal would have gave us $2 million a year. So we need a minimum of like $2 million a year to efficiently provide services and resources for Black students here on campus. However, don't think the team's going to give us that time soon, and Black students, as we said, need these things now. So I do see this as, I mean, I guess just for people so we can be transparent, looking at CUB, looking at where we came from 2 years ago, looking at how the BBRC or what is supposed to be a BBRC has evolved since then. We came up with this number with the transfer center of $5. Ultimately, when you look at the referendum breakdown, it's very obvious that she just said 25% is collected by like ASUCLA in return to financial aid. So that's already like basically $1 and some change that we're not going to see. The other like $3 and $1 is going to go to the BBRC and the transfer center. And so when you break it down like that, that's really sounds like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money, especially compared to CUB when we were asking people for $15 a quarter. So I think now generating this like would be, Josh, I don't know if you can recall. There you go. I was gonna say 250. I was close. Okay, 225,000. So I think people need to also understand that that'll be coming annually, because granted we just put up a surplus proposal. We don't know if that's gonna be voted on next week, and even if we do get it, once that money's gone, then what? When this year's council transitions out, that the center needs stable funding. So I think that's a big message, and I think something that we're going to work real hard on our end to be educating the public about, and just a little bit about what's been going on with the BBRC. Like this has been taken to the UCOP level for the last 7 years, and it hasn't been like dealt with. Like starting with President Napolitano, we've been advocating for this UC-wide for 7 years, actually like statewide, because I can't think of what they call like their version of UCOP for the CSUs, but like, it was a whole thing that actually got started at this national conference with Black students from BSUs from all over the state. And we started asking for a Black Resource Center and other things to meet our needs. So I think just when people know, I think it helps. I got like a brief history presentation, so I'm down to link like any informational docs. I don't know how that back end stuff works online, but any information that we can give people, I'm down with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll let Armand speak, but I know when we calculated for the TSC office as well, really it was like barely surpassing, I think, like $1,000 what they need to literally just be functioning as a place. So
yeah, I can definitely like jump in here. And I just like want to reiterate like what Simone said about like stability. I think it's a very similar thing for like the TSC, that like whether or not like different funding bodies make the decision to give a certain amount of money per year doesn't necessarily mean that the transfer community will know that it's a center that will continue to provide its services to the community for the years to come. And so the money that the TSC needs to establish its independence from rent, right now it's being charged $70,000 a year per rent, and so that's the money that was calculated for the referendum, which for the Transfer Student Center, in addition to taking into consideration the 25% that goes back into financial aid, came out to about $1 per quarter for the Transfer Student Center side of things. And again, like as I talked about earlier, after the independence from rent is established, that money, which when you think about it, $70,000 a year is really not that much when you think about what it takes to operate a whole center, continues to go back into, again, the funding costs for providing the services, for funding the staff members, and is something that ideally would continue with the additional funding established at the yearly basis that is discretionary by other funding bodies like SFAC and Student Affairs and Development funds. And so I also do want to be clear that this language did have to go through a lot of edits. We had to meet with like a lot of admin and other people and get a lot of folks to tell us like what would be acceptable once this goes all the way to the UCOP level and is like approved as something that we can even put on the ballot after this council decides. And so I think that was the place where making explicit like the numbers became a little bit difficult, especially because of the fact that in order to make this work, we explored a lot of different avenues, right? Like who are we going to be giving all this money to like divvy it up to the centers that like are benefiting from this cause. And that's why we had to ultimately set onto the Cultural Affairs Commission. And again, like Bree said, if this does pass, it's going to be a huge gratitude to the labor of the CACs for the years to come. But that was ultimately the place where we found that the distribution of funds would be the most equitable, even looking, we explored things like ASUCLA and like other USAC offices and a bunch of different options. And so like Simone said, I think that if this is something we put on the ballot, our communities are going to put in the labor to make sure that we educate the student body as to like how these numbers were reached and exactly where the money is going and making all of that clear. I just don't know if that's something that can actually go on the ballot itself. And so I think that's where that question comes in. But that's, I think, kind of where we're coming from.
yeah, I think, wait, okay, so Passa had her hand up, then I know someone wanted to speak, then Prom. So Passa, you're up.
Well, the answer that you guys just gave me about the breakdown was really great. So when this all comes to fruition, that's the kind of answer that you should be giving, right? I would say that like if you guys need any help with trying to kind of deliver, the breakdown of operational budgets and numbers and pie charts to the ballot in a digital form, our office, at least my office, has done work on budget transparency and making that a very nice web application that folks can just click through and interact with, because I think that the ability to poke through the numbers and try to understand what's going on as you make these decisions, it really helps. So that's my suggestion. But this is all great work, and I appreciate all your time and labor spent on this for these communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Passa. We'll be reaching out. I really appreciate that. Great. And then I think that wait, you wanted to speak, right?
Oh, it was just, I guess, a little bit about what Herman shared for the transfer center. For us, and I have a document that Monroe gave us as well, if we want to make that public for people to see. I do know how much, well, at least I know how much money is supposed to be going into the BBRC. And like we are paying for our space in Kirkhoff, we're paying $1,000. So out of that 230 something thousand that we got this year, they just won 100,000, and then another 100,000 went towards like a professional director's salary, and then there's like some money in there. I'm sorry, the BBRC's budget was $250,000. And then there was like a $50,000 programmatic budget. In Monroe's article that he did at the grand opening, he said there was a $15,000 discretionary fund. That was not included in the budget that he gave me a couple weeks prior. He's not disclosed anything to me about it, and neither is the director. So I don't know, big question mark on supposedly $15,000 there. So as you can see, there's really not a lot of money at students' disposal. Hence is why you don't see any resources there, really any programs happening in there. And I think just why we've been talking about student run all year long, what does student empowerment mean? And while we're having all of these conversations, and everybody here is obviously an empowered student, you wouldn't be otherwise. So I think there is pride in having this referendum housed under the CAC, and making sure that this money that's going to the BBRC this time is coming from students, and we have some type of say-so and jurisdiction and monitoring over it, that they have to be transparent, because that's another problem right now. Not only is there not any money over there, not any transparency. Also for student assistance, they're only paying for like 2 student workers, I believe. Guardian Scholars is paying for a couple, the Bunch Fellows is paying for a couple people to do research. Res Life, like I'm an employee in the BBRC, I'm employed through Res Life though. So as you can see, we're all scattered around because there's not enough money in there to pay students, but professional staff is taking up a big amount of the budget, as is the rent for that space. So I just want people to keep that in mind, and if that'll help, we can like put that on the ballot or something. If they let us include other information like that, I'm down to do that.
I also wanted to say that like there is like a lot more like clarification and work to come. This is just the ballot language, right? Like this is just like what like students will be seeing when they click on MyUCLA, right? But like there are still things that are going to be in development, like writing like MOUs and like releasing all this documentation and stuff. And I think that transparency is definitely something that we're committed to doing, and is a part of all of the like steps that come after like whether or not we put this on the ballot or not. I think this is just the information that after having gone through all of the like wild like meetings and stuff, and like Breeze and Simone will tell you there's like things where like we were told that morning that we had to have a meeting. So it's like, I think that like having just the knowledge that like this is the information that we are able to put on the ballot now to make sure it even gets on the ballot, right? Because that's the other thing I think I want to be clear about, is that like we don't have the time to not like vote on this today, or not make sure that this gets on the ballot today, because if it takes any longer than today, it will not like be on the ballot. Like we won't be assured of that. And I think that when you're talking about like communities like this and trying to get the support that we need, if we can't even like make sure that this gets on the ballot, how can we make sure that we have like the time to like develop all this information? So I think that like Breeze and Simone and I can definitely bring that like additional information. Like maybe we can do more presentations, we can do more things. Yeah, we can do all of that. It's just really important that this gets on the ballot.
Yeah, it has to go through UCOP because we're asking for a fee. So yeah, we do need to get it. We will be adding supplemental info, and like definitely we'll keep you all posted like week by week to make sure that like, you know, we're all being transparent with one another. And like, yeah, like if folks can help out, like Pasa, like Emily, thank y'all so much, and Tay for helping out. I know you helped with birth last year, so like, you know, any folks that like are willing to help out in like other capacities, that would be so helpful, because God knows I do not do numbers well. So yeah, that would be so helpful from everyone. So yeah, definitely. Okay, so our folks, can we have a motion maybe to just get it on the ballot? Or no, not get it on the ballot. Motion to, would it be a motion to move it to UCOP, Josh, or what is it?
Yeah, I think it would be a motion to put it onto the ballot pending approvals. So I don't think the UCOP and the Chancellor's office does not necessarily make decisions about the content, what they will want to make sure is that mathematically, we can actually fulfill what we are making the promise to the student body. Does that make sense? So that's from a chancellor, Chancellor Block's office will have to approve that. UCOP, the reason it goes to UCOP is to make sure that we're consistent with what other UCs have proposed and are doing. Because hypothetically, let's say UC Santa Barbara, I'm just using that as an example. This is not a real example, but let's say UC Santa Barbara proposed this and the UCOP said no. If we didn't have that consistency, there would obviously be inconsistency. So that's why there are two levels of this. So again, it would be a vote to add to the ballot pending approvals.
Okay. Can I get a motion, please?
I motion to put the Earn Education Access and Retention Now referendum on the 2022 USAC election ballot pending approval.
Great. Can I get a second?
A second.
Promise motions, Taylani seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Great, I think. Okay. Oh, great. Thank you all so much. So by a vote of 11 to 0 to 0, the motion passes and it is on the ballot. Yay!
Y'all really don't know what that was like trying to get today. We made it. I appreciate the support.
And just a reminder to everybody on here.
So much. Okay. Oh.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say we do have a couple of days to not alter the language, but fix the language. But I would need the final draft of this language by noon on Friday so that I can start the approval process with our campus and then move up to UCOP. So Breeze, if there are any suggestions, do they send it to you and Herman, or how would you like to collect any?
Yeah, if folks can comment instead, and I'm honestly, if Herman, you're down to maybe do like an office hour type thing, I would be open to that. Maybe like we can put it in the chat and like put in like an hour or so that we can put in 2 days, or yeah, preferably one if folks could be 1 day instead, because I know everyone's really busy and tired. But yeah, like if folks do want to come and like offer suggestions, that would be amazing. But yeah, like we'll go ahead and I'll plug that in the chat tomorrow morning and we can figure out a time. But yeah, thank you all so much. Like truly, this means a lot. And I know, like, yeah, we're all really happy. Okay. Okay, great. So with that, thank you all so much. I move to adjourn this meeting at 10:15 p.m.